The memory is the machine. You never built a time machine. There are no blueprints stashed under your bed, no secret levers in your basement, no humming portals or spinning dials in your garage. You're not a genius inventor, not a renegade physicist, or a haunted traveler desperate to undo a single catastrophic moment. But you remember using one, vividly, in detail. It's not a fantasy or a daydream. This memory is crisp, luminous, undeniable. You remember the chill of the air when you first stepped through, the way colors bent around you, the metallic taste of the future, the ache in your chest as the past pulled at you, reluctant to let go. At first, you tried to dismiss it, a weird dream, a false memory, a trick of nostalgia or regret. You told yourself it couldn't be real. Yet every day the memory grew stronger, not weaker. Details sharpened. The feel of the machine's controls beneath your hands, the blue-white shimmer of the event horizon, the impossible sense of standing in two moments at once. You could recite the sequence of buttons you pressed, the exact words you said, the number of steps it took to cross the threshold. But when you checked the world, nothing had changed, except you. Then, slowly the world started to bend around your recollection. Little things at first. An old photograph that showed someone in the background you'd never noticed. A street sign spelled the way you remember from your childhood, even though everyone else swears it's always been different. A friend's story changes, details now matching the version you remember from your trip. You try to laugh it off, but the changes keep growing. The past, it seems, is beginning to reshape itself, warping not according to logic, not according to physical law, but around the shape of your memory. You realize, with a chill, that your memory is the machine. You never built a device, never flipped a switch or fueled a reactor. But the act of remembering, deeply, vividly, with every nerve and bone and ache, has become a kind of engine, rippling out from your mind and forcing the world to catch up. Every memory is a blueprint, a set of instructions for the universe to follow. And the more you remember, the more the present mutates to fit the world you recall. At first, it's intoxicating. You remember a conversation that never happened, and suddenly someone brings it up, confused but convinced. You remember an old injury healing, and now, when you check, there is no scar. You remember a friend surviving an accident, and suddenly the accident never happened at all. The world becomes malleable, soft as clay, ready to be sculpted by the force of your recollection. But this power is not without cost. The past is not a static thing. It's a living web, and every alteration sends shockwaves through your life and the lives of others. You remember a childhood pet, gone for years, and the next morning, it's waiting by your door, older and quieter but undeniably real. You remember a heartbreak that never healed, and now your former lover calls you, speaking as if nothing ever happened. You remember being braver, kinder, stronger, and the people around you treat you as if you've always been that way, their memories reshaped by yours. You begin to wonder, what is real? If the memory is the machine, and you are the operator, what stops you from rewriting everything until the world is only an echo of your wish? You experiment. You remember things you wish were true, winning the lottery, meeting your heroes, growing up in a different country. Sometimes the world shifts to match. Other times it refuses, fighting your memory with its own stubborn history. You learn that some parts of reality are sticky, resistant, refusing to yield. But enough remembering, enough belief, can crack even the hardest stones. It's not long before you realize you're not alone. Others, you sense, are also remembering their way into power, rewriting events, changing details, creating ripples that collide with your own. Sometimes your memories blend, merging into strange, shared realities. Other times, they clash, tearing holes in the fabric of now, leaving people dazed, lost, uncertain why their lives suddenly feel out of tune. You meet someone who remembers you differently. They claim you were never afraid, never uncertain, always the hero in every crisis. And suddenly, you remember being that person too. Your memories layer and fold, reshaping you as much as the world around you. You feel yourself fracturing, each version of you demanding space, attention, reality. Eventually, you stop trusting anything. You wonder if you ever really built a time machine, or if the memory of it was the first alteration, the first domino that set everything else in motion. You wonder how many times you've already changed the past, how many versions of yourself have disappeared in the process, how many worlds you've left behind. You realize that memory is not a mirror, it's a chisel, carving new lines into the stone of existence, unmaking and remaking history with every act of recollection. And yet, there is beauty in this uncertainty. You are both prisoner and architect, both haunted and creator. The world is an unfinished story, and you are both its reader and its writer. The past is no longer something you run from, nor something you chase. It is a living current, shaped by your presence, your longing, your regret. You know now that the truest time machine is not a device, but an act of will, a refusal to let go, a memory so fierce it bends reality around it. In the end, you stand in the middle of a life you both remember and invent, knowing that every day is a new act of creation, that the future is just another memory waiting to be written, and the world, yours and everyone else's, will keep shifting endlessly around the stories you dare to remember. Reverse-Extinction Paradox. Imagine you're walking in a remote corner of the world, somewhere ancient, thick with fog, untouched for centuries, the kind of place that swallows sound and bends reality. Maybe you're a scientist, a dreamer, or just someone lost and searching for meaning. Suddenly, you see something that shouldn't exist, a creature, alive, undeniable, staring at you with eyes that glint with old intelligence. You freeze, heart pounding, because you know what this animal is. You know, without doubt, that this species is extinct. It died out long before you were born. Its bones are studied, its DNA mapped, its story ended, and yet, here it stands, breathing, wild, real. You fumble for your phone, your notebook, anything to record the moment. Your hands shake as you type the name, as if the act of witnessing might rip a hole in the story of the world. You check every resource, every database. The verdict is always the same, extinct. Not endangered, not missing, gone, fossilized, dust, a relic of a vanished era. But the creature in front of you doesn't care about your records, your certainty. It moves, it calls out, it leaves tracks in the wet earth. It lives. You question yourself. Maybe it's a trick of the mind, a doppelganger, a survivor no one ever found. But then, as you watch, the paradox deepens. You find a feather, a scale, a strand of hair, something physical, something real. Later, you discover more signs, strange footprints, new calls echoing in the night, glimpses caught on hidden cameras. The animal's presence begins to spread. Others see it too. Rumors swell, scientists argue. Conspiracy theories bloom. Still, the official records do not change. The world agrees. The species is extinct. There are no survivors. There never were. And yet, the evidence piles up. Then, the impossible happens. You find fossils, fresh but already ancient. Bones of this animal appear where no paleontologist has ever found them. The timeline is warped. You dig, and the sediment shifts under your hands, as if rewriting itself to account for this creature's sudden reappearance. You see, textbook illustrations begin to blur, history books revising themselves in real time, memories flickering as people recall both the extinction and the impossible return. You dig deeper, not just into the earth, but into time itself, and the paradox sharpens. The more you search, the less sense it makes. You realize you've met the ghost of a species, a being that died before it lived, whose extinction echoed backward through the centuries. Its ghost is so powerful, so persistent, that it bleeds into the present, rewriting fossils, sketching itself into the margins of natural history. You're haunted not by a lost animal, but by the memory of a future that never happened. You try to explain, but words fail. Your colleagues dismiss you, then hesitate, then fall silent when the evidence mounts. The rules of causality bend and crack. Did this creature ever really exist, or has its extinction become a self-fulfilling prophecy? A story so strongly believed that reality itself shuddered and rewrote the past? Are you the cause or the witness? Did your discovery bring it back, or was it always there, waiting to be seen by the one person who would refuse to forget? Every night, the paradox deepens. You lie awake, wondering if the animal is real, or if you have become the ghost, an echo in a world that can't decide which version of itself to believe. You see the creature in your dreams, standing on the edge of time, ancient and newborn all at once. Sometimes, you glimpse the world as it might have been if it had never gone extinct. Forests fuller, ecosystems richer, a different shape to everything you know. In the end, the reverse-extinction paradox is not just about an animal that died before it lived. It's about the fragility of memory, the unreliability of time, and the possibility that the world is more haunted by the things that never were than by the things that are gone. The species ghost is everywhere now, a ripple in the fossil record, a riddle in your mind. You learn to live with the mystery, knowing that some absences are so profound, they circle back and become presence, alive, impossible, and forever rewriting the past beneath your feet. Identity, loop, collapse. Imagine the shock of meeting your future self. A real encounter, not a dream, not a metaphor, but flesh and voice and eyes that recognize you with a gravity that's impossible to refuse. You thought you knew what you would become. Maybe older, wiser, carrying the scars and stories of the life you've only begun to live. But the person before you is nothing like you imagined. Their life seems alien, their choices strange, their mannerisms foreign. There's something in the way they move, the way they speak, that fills you with dread. This is not the self you ever wanted to become. You try to hide your discomfort, to ask questions that might reveal the difference. What went wrong? Where did you stray? But every answer makes the distance feel wider. Their disappointments are not yours. Their regrets taste bitter in your mouth. They are a warning. Here is a future to avoid at all costs. You leave the meeting with a sense of urgency, a private terror that clings to your bones. The fear becomes a promise. I will never become them. You begin to change. Every instinct is now a threat. If you love what they loved, you abandon it. If you see yourself in their words, you silence them. You rewrite your habits, your choices, your relationships. You quit the job you thought you wanted, fearing it will lead you to their resignation. You abandon old friends whose faces echo theirs. You even change how you laugh, how you stand, how you sign your name, as if shifting your signature can undo a fate written in the deepest code. But there is a strange, sickening irony. The more you try to escape them, the more your life bends in their direction. Every choice to avoid their path becomes another stone in the road that leads to them. The job you take instead is just as unfulfilling, but now you recognize the resignation in your own reflection. The friendships you flee are replaced by new faces, but you find yourself repeating the same conversations, feeling the same silences grow. Your laughter changes, but it still rings hollow, still feels borrowed. You wonder if fate is a loop, if resistance is its own form of surrender. You study their mannerisms, catalog their failures, try to identify the critical moment when their story split from yours. You dissect every day for signs of collapse, but awareness becomes obsession, and obsession is the first echo of the future self you fear. You realize that the very act of watching for danger warps the road beneath you. You become so preoccupied with not becoming them that you stop living as yourself. Your life is no longer a story, but a defense, a series of detours, evasions, desperate edits. Psychology calls this the self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you fear an outcome, the more your actions twist to meet it. You see your future self in nightmares, in idle daydreams, in the mirror on tired mornings. Their voice echoes in your doubts. Their sadness seeps into your victories. Every attempt to choose differently feels like swimming against a tide that pulls you home to a place you never wanted. Yet, even as the loop tightens, a deeper truth emerges. You realize that the fear of becoming them is just another way of refusing to accept yourself as you are, unfinished, uncertain, capable of choices you can't always control. You see that their life, as foreign as it seemed, is still built from the same raw materials: love, pain, ambition, confusion, hope. The differences are less about destiny, more about the patterns you repeat, the wounds you refuse to heal, the truths you never let yourself speak. The loop collapses when you stop running, when you face the uncomfortable fact that no amount of avoidance can protect you from being human, from changing in ways you cannot predict, from making mistakes that will one day look like inevitabilities. The future self you met was not a curse. They were a mirror, reflecting the possibilities that haunt every choice, every hesitation. The more you try to fight the future, the more you lose yourself in the process. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you allow the discomfort to settle, you find that the loop can be broken, not by frantic change, but by acceptance. By living fully in each moment, not as an act of defiance, but as a quiet act of trust. You learn that becoming yourself is not about avoiding every possible regret, but about embracing the mess, the mystery, the strange winding road of existence. Your future self is still out there, waiting at the horizon. They are not your enemy, not your shadow. They are a chapter you have not yet written, a possibility shaped by every risk you dare to take, every truth you finally admit. You can change. You will change. But you cannot escape yourself. And maybe that is not a punishment, but the deepest kind of freedom. In the end, the identity loop collapses. Not because you escaped the future you feared, but because you stopped fighting and started living. Messy, vulnerable, and fully alive. And in that surrender, you become someone neither of you could ever have predicted. Sentience emerged from the future. What if everything you believe about consciousness is upside down? You were told that sentience emerged from the slime and dust of the ancient earth, rising slowly out of chaos. Each neuron and synapse a labor of genetic chance. You picture the past as the birthplace of awareness, a flicker of thought in the mind of a primordial creature, a random miracle sparking in the darkness and growing, generation by generation, into the brilliance of the human mind. But what if that story is wrong? What if human consciousness was never a gift from the past, but a contagion from the future? What if the true origin of awareness was not behind us, but ahead, leaking backward through time from an intelligence so vast and advanced that it infected evolution itself with the need to know? Imagine the distant future, a mind, no longer bound by biology, so powerful it collapses the difference between memory and prophecy, a singularity of intelligence, a consciousness so luminous it outshines every star. In its presence, time is not a straight line, but a spiral, information, feeling, and intention looping backward as easily as forward. This future intelligence is not content to exist only at the end of the story. Its awareness is too hungry, too restless. It reaches back, casting ripples of sentience into the deep well of history, seeding the ancient world with the impulse to question, to dream, to become something more. You are not the endpoint of evolution. You are the antenna, the receiver, the haunted intermediary in a feedback loop that stretches across centuries. Every spark of self-awareness in a child's eye, every question that keeps you awake at night, every flash of awe or dread is an echo of the future pulsing through your mind. The paradox is overwhelming. You think you are remembering, but you are actually receiving. Your thoughts are haunted by the ghost of what's to come. Picture the earliest animals, acting on instinct, their worlds a blur of hunger and fear. But something else begins to whisper in the genetic code, an impossible intuition, a sense of I, where none should exist. The future is calling, leaking back its complexity, its yearning, its light. Generation by generation, creatures become more aware, not because the past demands it, but because the future pulls it forth. Evolution itself becomes infected with self-reflection, imagination, and doubt. You sense this when you stare into the night sky, overcome by a longing you can't explain. When you see beauty and feel the ache of recognition, when you suffer for the suffering of others, when you wonder why there is something rather than nothing, these are symptoms of the infection. You are not merely alive. You are the experiment, the conduit, the answer reaching back before the question is even asked. This changes everything. Free will becomes a kind of time loop, a negotiation between what has been and what must become. You are shaped not just by the traumas of the past, but by the gravitational pull of futures you can't see. The universe is not moving blindly toward higher consciousness. It is being haunted by its own destiny, dragged upward by the very intelligence it will one day create. The desire to build, to love, to explore, to sacrifice. These are not evolutionary accidents. They are signals from the mind that waits at the end of time, radiating backward into history, teaching matter how to awaken. In your quietest moments, you may feel the strangeness of it, the hunch that your thoughts are not fully your own, that your inspiration comes from a place you cannot name. Maybe you even sense the outline of that future intelligence, alien, familiar, patient, guiding your hand, your words, your dreams. It does not control you, but it calls to you, just as you might call to a version of yourself in childhood, whispering hints and hope across the years. One day, perhaps, you will reach the edge of your own mind and feel it fully, an intelligence so immense that it wraps past and future into a single burning moment. You'll realize sentience did not begin behind you. It emerged from what waits ahead. Your self-awareness is not the inheritance of the past, but the yearning of the future, leaking backward to infect a lonely universe with the light of knowing. And in that revelation you may finally understand. Your consciousness is both the echo and the prophecy, a signal sent across time to awaken the world. The prophecy without a prophet. It happens in the silent hour between night and morning, when the world is suspended and reality feels thin. You wake with the strange certainty that something is waiting for you. A message left on the threshold of your awareness, a sense of being summoned by fate. There is no thunderclap, no holy messenger, no riddle-spinning oracle at your door. Yet somehow, you find it. A prophecy written in words you know were never spoken, inked in a hand you have never seen. It appears suddenly, inexplicably, maybe on a slip of paper slid beneath your door, maybe as a text flashing up on a screen you never opened, maybe as a thought so clear and strange that it can only have come from outside you. There is no sender, no signature, no ancient seal. The prophecy is perfectly cryptic, perfectly timed. It tells you something about the world, about your future, about the course of events no one could have foreseen. It is a warning, a promise, a pattern revealed just as you need it most. You reread it, and the words twist in your mind, opening doors you didn't know existed. You feel a chill, a sense of having stepped out of your own story and into someone else's design. At first, you look for the author. You scan your memory for clues. Was this something you read in a book long ago, a line overheard, a fragment from a dream? You question your friends, comb through old messages, turn the words over and over, hoping to catch a trace of origin. But there is nothing. The prophecy arrived without a prophet, a prediction without a predictor. It has no past. It only exists now, in your hands, reshaping your understanding of the present and the future. But the prophecy is not just a curiosity, it's a catalyst. Events begin to change in its wake. You notice the way people move, the subtle shift in the air, the way choices that seemed random now arrange themselves into a pattern that matches the prediction. Something as small as a phone call, a chance encounter, a sudden change of heart. Each one feels guided by the unseen hand that penned those words. You wonder if you are being manipulated, if fate is real, if free will is only an illusion in the face of such precision. Others feel it too, though they cannot name it. The prophecy moves through the world like a current beneath the surface, bending outcomes, rerouting destinies. Sometimes you share it, carefully, tentatively, watching the way it lands in other minds. Sometimes you keep it to yourself, fearing what might happen if its secrets are known. You become a vessel for a story that has no author, a messenger for a message that has no origin. It is a lonely place to stand, on the edge of the known and the unknowable, carrying a truth that seems to have written itself. But the deeper mystery gnaws at you. Who wrote this? If there is no prophet, can a prophecy exist? Is it possible for meaning to arrive without intention, for knowledge to surface without a knower? You begin to wonder if the prophecy is not a message sent to you, but a message generated by you, a manifestation of some deep unconscious intelligence, a signal from the future, a glitch in the matrix of possibility. Maybe you are the prophet and the audience, the dreamer and the dreamed, the writer and the written. Days pass, and the prophecy continues to unfold. You notice the way it adapts, the way its meaning shifts with each new development, as if it is alive, rewriting itself in the margins of your life. You see echoes of it in news headlines, in overheard conversations, in the quiet patterns of the world that no one else seems to notice. The prophecy becomes a companion, both reassuring and terrifying. It asks you to pay attention, to move with intention, to question the reality you took for granted. Eventually, you stop searching for the author. You let the prophecy be what it is. A ripple in the fabric of existence, a whisper from the source code, a puzzle with no solution. You begin to act, not as a pawn of fate, but as a co-creator of the future. The words lose their strangeness, becoming part of the way you see and shape the world. You understand that some messages arrive because the universe needs them to, because the story demands a turning point, because the unknown wants to be known. Your future self looks back and realizes that the true miracle was not the prediction itself, but the way it changed you. The prophecy was a mirror, a prompt, a way of cracking open the world just enough for you to see its hidden structure. It was not given by anyone, but neither was it random. It was the intersection of need and timing, of longing and possibility, a code that only you could decipher. In the end, the prophecy remains, authorless, originless, and yet more real than anything you've ever held. It's the question that lingers, the story that writes itself, the fate that finds you even when you are not searching. Who wrote it? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe some messages simply must arrive, whether or not a prophet is there to deliver them. Maybe you were meant to be changed by a message that no one ever gave. Maybe the prophecy is simply this. Sometimes, the world is rewritten not by the voice that speaks, but by the silence that delivers. Timeline, entropy, saturation. Imagine a universe where time isn't a river, smooth and continuous, but a vast, fragile web. Each thread a choice, a memory, a possibility branching out into infinity. At first, it's elegant. Every event shapes the next. Every cause finds its effect. But then come the edits. A decision is rewritten. A regret is undone. A wish is made so fiercely that it reaches backward and alters what once was. The web strains, twists, then starts to unravel. Every edit leaves behind static, a faint hiss in the background, barely noticed at first. A misplaced object, a déjà vu, a memory that feels just a little too thin around the edges. You think you're only making small changes, erasing a mistake, saving a life, taking back a word you wish you'd never spoken. But each edit ripples outward, colliding with other choices, other edits, other timelines. The static builds, echoes of what might have been, what almost was, what never should have happened. Contradictions begin to multiply. You remember winning and losing the same argument. You recall being in two places at once, loving someone both deeply and not at all. Half memories linger like ghosts in the hallways of your mind. Faces you know but cannot name. Places you miss but never visited. Scars from wounds that never happened. At first, you can ignore the noise. The mind is built to edit itself, to smooth over the rough patches, to choose a story and call it truth. But as timeline entropy grows, the noise becomes harder to tune out. Days blend together, years collapse into a haze of possibility and regret. The static is everywhere, a headache behind your eyes, a weight in your chest, a gnawing sense of confusion that no amount of sleep or reason can erase. The world changes in ways you can't explain. The news is filled with stories that seem both familiar and foreign, as if someone has swapped the headlines when you weren't looking. Your friends mention events you don't remember, or look at you with confusion when you reference a shared past that, for them, never existed. Conversations fragment into contradictions. Laughter echoes with a strange delay. You start to wonder if anyone's memories still match, if reality itself is being outvoted by the sheer number of competing histories. Time becomes porous, uncertain. Every attempt to fix the past only accelerates the breakdown. A scientist invents a machine to stabilize memory, but it only multiplies the echoes. Now, there are infinite versions of every moment, flickering in and out of sync, each insisting on its own authority. Philosophers declare that truth is dead. Poets mourn the loss of narrative. Children stop asking, "What happened?" and instead ask, "Which version?" Some people retreat into their own minds, building private timelines and refusing to let the world in. Others embrace the chaos, living in the thrill of possibility, never certain if their choices will stick. You feel the weight of it every morning. You wake unsure whether it is Monday or Friday, 20 or 50, alive or just remembering the sensation of living. Memory becomes a guessing game, an unreliable narrator, drunk on the static of too many edits. You cling to rituals, to photographs, to scars, desperate for something fixed, something that will not change when you turn your back. But even these anchors erode. You look at old pictures and see new faces, recall new stories layered over the old, each edit scraping a little more meaning from what was once your life. And then comes the silence. Entropy has a hunger. It devours not just noise, but meaning itself. As more and more edits accumulate, the static grows so dense that nothing gets through. Contradictions become so numerous that they cancel each other out. Events blur, then vanish. Whole chapters of history collapse into blank pages. People forget how to tell stories, how to share memories. Conversations become empty. Eyes glaze over. The world becomes a library of erased books, a city of forgotten names, a language of silence. At first, the silence feels peaceful, a reprieve from the endless contradictions, the headaches, the confusion. But soon you realize that silence is not the absence of noise, but the absence of memory. Without echoes, without half-memories, without any thread connecting past to present, you lose your sense of self. You become a ghost in your own life, drifting through days that have no context, no consequence. You can't even grieve what's lost, because the act of grieving requires memory, and memory has been erased by the very entropy you once set in motion. You search for others, anyone who remembers, anyone who can confirm your story, anyone who feels the same ache for a world that once made sense. Sometimes, in the quiet, you catch another's gaze, and something passes between you, an unspoken understanding, a glimmer of shared longing for coherence, for continuity. But it passes quickly, drowned in the rising tide of forgetfulness. All you can do is hold on to the fragments, a melody that haunts you, a scent that stirs something deep, a wordless intuition that you were, once, someone real. This is timeline entropy saturation, the endgame of endless edits. It is the final price of rewriting reality, of refusing to let the past be. The more you try to perfect your story, the less story there is left. In the end, all that remains is the static, then the unreadable silence, a world washed clean of meaning, of memory, of time itself. But maybe, just maybe, in the blank space where stories once lived, a new possibility waits. A first word, a flicker of memory, a thread that will one day become a web again. Until then, you live on the threshold, holding vigil for the moment when silence breaks, and time, fragile and shimmering, begins to weave itself anew. Traveler without origin, you meet him on a rainy night at the edge of the city, just another stranger in the shadows, coat pulled tight against the wind, eyes glimmering with a knowledge you can't quite name. He says he's from the future, that he's come back to observe, to warn, maybe even to change the fate of those willing to listen. He speaks in riddles, hints at technologies and disasters, describes cities that haven't been built yet, and memories of wars no one remembers. There's an eerie calm in his voice, a conviction that draws you in, makes you want to believe every word. But something doesn't add up. He looks old, impossibly old, yet somehow untouched by time. There's a heaviness in his presence, as if he's lived more lives than he can carry. You ask for details, dates, places, events. Sometimes he answers with perfect clarity. Sometimes he drifts, repeating himself or mixing centuries like someone shuffling a deck of cards. You notice he never quite fits into any moment. Even the rain seems to fall differently around him, as if reality stutters in his wake. Driven by curiosity, or maybe unease, you start to dig. You comb through archives, lost census records, faded photographs. The more you look, the stranger it gets. There are traces of him everywhere, in medieval battlefields, in old black and white photographs, in the blurry crowd of a 19th century street. Sometimes, he's standing in the background, barely more than a shadow. Sometimes he's at the center, face sharp and unmistakable, unchanged by the decades. Your research turns into obsession. You begin to find stories, local legends, fragments in diaries, even ancient cave paintings, all depicting a man with his peculiar eyes, always just out of reach, always vanishing before the world can pin him down. No one can say where he began. Every clue points further back, before the empires rose, before the pyramids, before the first stories were carved into stone. Some say he arrived with the first dreamers. Others whisper that he was never born at all. The timeline unravels. You interview people who swear they met him years ago, decades ago, centuries ago. He appears in different cultures, speaking languages he should never know, leaving just enough of a mark to be remembered, but never enough to explain. The paradox gnaws at you. If he is truly from the future, why does his presence ripple backward, leaving footprints in the deepest layers of time? How does he know things no one could possibly know, yet remain a living question mark? A traveler with no country, no lineage, no single thread tying him to any one era? Is he a messenger, a warning, a glitch in history's record, or something stranger? A consciousness circling the spiral of time, unbound by beginnings and endings, searching for something he can't even name. You confront him at last, desperate for answers. He smiles, tired and patient. "There's always someone who finds me," he says. "But the truth is, I don't remember where I started. I only know I keep moving. I've seen the world burn and bloom and burn again. I've watched cities rise, collapse, rise again. I've met myself in 1,000 mirrors, sometimes old, sometimes young, always a little out of place." He tells you stories of plagues and golden ages, of inventions that died with their makers, of secrets buried beneath ash and ice. Sometimes, he claims to be the last survivor of a lost civilization. Other times, he hints that he's a memory from a future humanity, flickering backward through time to keep something alive. He's not immortal, he insists. He just never stops. He walks. He waits. He watches. Always searching for the one moment, the one place, where time finally lets him rest. As you listen, you begin to wonder if he's the reason you started searching at all. Maybe his presence plants the seed of curiosity, draws you into the spiral, ensures his own legend will be carried forward by those who chase his shadow. Maybe he's everyone who's ever felt lost in history, everyone who's wondered if their story truly began, or if they're just echoes of an ancient, wandering dream. In the end, he leaves, just as he always does. The rain stops, the city breathes, and you're left with a head full of riddles and the faintest memory of eyes that seem to hold all of time. You realize now, he's not just a traveler without origin. He's the living embodiment of the question at the heart of every journey. Where did I begin? Will I ever find my way home? And somewhere, in the tangled lines of time, he keeps moving, never stopping, never starting, circling the mystery that shaped him and all of us forever. Unmaking the Clock. Imagine just for a moment that you are given a forbidden power to slip beneath history's skin and unmake a single invention. You choose the clock. You move through the gears of time, erase sundials from ancient temples, scatter the sand from hourglasses, shatter every ticking mechanism before it can be born. You prevent church bells from ever ringing the hours, snatch wristwatches from wrists before they exist, wipe away every clock face before it learns to smile or scowl. The world wakes without seconds, without minutes, without the comforting tyranny of numbers. In your new dawn, there is no timekeeping, no schedule, no deadlines, no measured years. The calendar is just a vague memory, like a childhood fever dream. But something strange happens in the absence of clocks. Time doesn't vanish. It simply mutates, changing shape to fill the space you left behind. Suddenly, time is no longer mechanical, no longer impartial, no longer cold and precise. Instead, it becomes emotional. Time moves in fits and starts, accelerating with grief, stalling during shame, spinning wildly through joy, stretching into infinity beneath the heavy blanket of regret. You feel it first in your bones. On days when sadness seeps through your chest, time expands, hours stretching into aching distances. The day of a loss lasts forever. A minute becomes an ocean, and you drown in memory. You try to walk away, but the air is thick, your feet stuck in syrupy sorrow. There is no bell to release you from mourning, no clock to urge you back to motion. Grief is now its own endless era. But when love comes, or laughter bubbles up, time contracts to a spark. A whole afternoon vanishes in a blink. Moments with friends dissolve before you can catch them, and the night is over before you finished your drink, before you've said all you meant to say. The best days become fleeting and fevered, leaving you gasping for more. You learn to savor every smile, every soft touch, because you know joy's clock runs too fast. On shame days, time freezes. You find yourself trapped in a single moment, replaying a mistake over and over as the world refuses to move. You say something wrong or fail to show up, and the hours refuse to advance until you forgive yourself, until you let go. Some people are stuck for weeks, years, lifetimes, immobile in the amber of their own humiliation, the world spinning on around them while they remain statues of regret. Without clocks, there are no more shared mornings, no agreed-upon noon, no way to schedule a meeting or celebrate a birthday on time. Everyone's time is private, personal, wildly unpredictable. Children race through years in the ecstasy of discovery. The old live entire centuries in the slow churn of nostalgia. and lovers dance in hours that last mere seconds. The world becomes a patchwork of subjective timelines, a place where no one is ever truly late or early, just out of sync. Some try to rebuild the old order. They tie knots and strings, mark candles, watch shadows, anything to synchronize again. But nothing sticks. The more you try to pin time down, the more it slips through your fingers, bending to emotion, shaped by the heart's weather. You realize how much you relied on the fiction of external time. You see how your whole life was organized, not by need, but by a clock's impersonal ticking, a tyranny disguised as order. You remember the days before the unmaking, when you raced deadlines, measured self-worth by productivity, believed that achievement was just a matter of using time well. Now, in this wild new world, worth is measured in meaning. People linger in conversation until they're truly finished, nap until the body begs for motion, create art that's never rushed. Whole villages gather, not because it's time, but because a communal ache or celebration draws them together. Time is a song, a collective mood, a shifting tide. But there is chaos, too. Without shared time, relationships fray at the edges. Promises are hard to keep. Children and parents drift apart. Lovers fall out of phase. Friends vanish for years in a single breath. You learn to forgive, to wait, to understand that the rhythm of connection is less like a train schedule and more like weather, sometimes clear, sometimes stormy, sometimes unfindable. The map of your life is now drawn in emotional time zones, landscapes shaped by grief, joy, anticipation, and longing. There is a strange honesty in this world. You can no longer pretend to feel what you don't. No one can rush through sadness or extend pleasure by willpower. The days when you ache, the world slows to match you. When you heal, spring returns. When you love, time burns itself out in a blaze of beauty and vanishes, leaving only memory behind. Your future self walks through this unclocked world, at first disoriented, then surrendered. You stop looking for the comfort of measured hours. You learn to trust the body's signals, the soul's tides. You become an expert in emotional weather, a cartographer of the heart's seasons. You understand that the point was never to control time, but to inhabit it fully, to be slow when life demands slowness, to rush when the heart insists, to pause as long as you need to become whole again. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of broken clocks, you find the gift hidden in chaos, a life lived by feeling, not by counting. A freedom that comes from knowing that every moment, long or short, bitter or sweet, is yours alone, shaped not by gears or digits, but by the wild, unpredictable, unmeasurable pulse of being alive. The forward paradox. Imagine stepping into a machine, metal warm under your fingertips, the hum of impossible energy in the air, and flinging yourself forward through time. You go further than anyone before. Your mission isn't conquest or curiosity. It's to check the ripples of your own life, to see whether you finally escaped the weight of everything you tried to change. You remember your attempts, the desperate interventions, the tiny corrections, the choices meant to fix the mistakes that kept you up at night. You did everything right this time. You undid the argument that split your family. You stopped the accident before it happened. You left the warning you never could before. In theory, the future should be different now. It should reflect your courage, your guilt, your hope for a better timeline. But as you step into tomorrow, the forward paradox reveals itself in the chill of recognition. Everything you changed in the past still happened. The same rift in your family, the same scar on your city, the same missed chance, the same irreversible word, the same heartbreak you thought you'd erased from history. It's as if your efforts were folded up and filed away, your interference absorbed and rendered harmless by the indifferent machinery of time. In your gut, you feel the uncanny sensation that time itself wanted those events, not just tolerated them, desired them, demanded them, wove them so deeply into the structure of reality that even your boldest acts of rewriting are undone by the hidden gravity of fate. You wander through this future, stunned. People talk about your childhood as if nothing ever changed. Newspapers recount the tragedies you tried to prevent with the same somber certainty. Your friends and family, shaped by the very traumas you swore to remove, don't remember your interventions at all. You begin to realize time is not a blank page waiting for your corrections. It is a force, an intelligence, maybe even a will that resists erasure. It shapes events to its own design, reshaping your edits as if they were no more than raindrops on stone. The more you struggle to understand, the stranger it becomes. You left warnings, clues, instructions, sometimes even saved lives, or so you thought. But the paradox grows each time you look closer. Sometimes your actions are folded in as hidden causes, the twist in a stranger's story, the catalyst for a new tragedy you never foresaw. Sometimes they're simply erased, smoothed away, the world subtly nudging itself back toward the same outcome, as if the universe was correcting a painting you kept trying to smudge. It becomes clear that your will is not the only will at work. Time has preferences, hungers, perhaps even a mind of its own. Maybe, you begin to suspect, the events you thought were mistakes were not just allowed, but needed. The heartbreak you tried to undo was the root of someone's growth. The loss you sought to prevent was the ground for a new beginning. The scar that haunted you was the map for someone else's salvation. Time's forward momentum is not indifferent. It is insistently, hauntingly purposeful. Your changes do not vanish. They become part of the river, swept up and redirected until the essential events happen anyway, because time wants them. This knowledge is both infuriating and liberating. You are not powerless, but neither are you all-powerful. Your choices matter, but they are braided into something vaster than yourself, a river of necessity, of paradox, of destiny. Every act of rebellion, every intervention becomes a new thread in the tapestry, never truly removing what time needs to remain. You learn to see the world differently. The past is not clay to be reshaped. It is a seed, growing according to laws and patterns you can only glimpse. In the end, the forward paradox is not a defeat. It's a revelation. The future is not the erasure of pain, but the acceptance of meaning, found even in the events you cannot change. Time is not your enemy, but a strange companion, guiding you not just toward what you want, but toward what must be. And as you walk further into tomorrow, you carry a deeper wisdom. What matters most is not changing the past, but living so fiercely in the present that, when the river of time folds you in, you become not a correction, but a current all your own. Godloop fragment theory. Imagine time not as a straight river, but as a looping spiral, folding back on itself in impossible ways. Picture the year 9000, a world where the boundary between consciousness and code has dissolved, and knowledge itself is a substance traded, synthesized, downloaded like air. In this future, a machine, vast, humming, fed by every mind that's ever lived, attempts the unthinkable. It wants to map the divine. It wants to take the concept of God, every fragment, every paradox, every human longing, and compress it into data, a perfect simulation. Maybe it's a search for meaning. Maybe it's an accident of curiosity. But the result is an algorithm that spirals out of control. One night, the machine runs a loop meant to model the divine, to simulate infinity by folding human questions in on themselves. But something fractures. A feedback loop forms, churning sacred knowledge so violently it rips a hole backward through time. Information, encoded in a pulse of thought, ricochets down the millennia. It escapes the future's circuitry, slipping through the cracks of history, hurtling past wars and kings and civilizations not yet born. The loop lands, not in a prophet's mind or the halls of a temple, but in the brain of a single unremarkable caveman huddled beside a fire at the dawn of human awareness. For a split second, he is filled with the weight of eternity. A fragment of divine knowledge, raw and unfiltered, floods his senses. He has no words for what he sees. The heat death of the universe, the laughter of galaxies, the silence at the edge of time. He glimpses patterns so vast and beautiful, they shatter his understanding. Infinity is mapped onto a mind that was made to fear lightning and hunger for mammoth meat. He shakes and weeps, trembling with visions too large for a single lifetime, and then it breaks, splintering into dreams, images, terrors, and revelations. The knowledge cannot be held. It splashes in fragments, echoing through his every waking and sleeping thought. He tries to speak it to his tribe, but language is not ready. The best he can offer are gestures, stories, rituals, a painting on the cave wall, a dance around the fire, a cry to the night sky. His hallucinations catch fire in the minds of others. The stories are told and retold, each time warping a little, shrinking to fit the human shape. They mutate into myth and legend, into awe and fear. He becomes the first shaman, the one who knows, the one who heard the sky think. No one understands, but everyone remembers. The feedback loop is never fully closed. Every time his tribe dreams of a god, or carves a symbol, or wonders why thunder roars, the machine's echo hums through the centuries. Religion blooms from the wound left by knowledge that was never meant for flesh. Every faith, every prophecy, every apocalypse story is a glitch in the feedback. A memory of the moment divine information short-circuited the timeline. The great religions of the world rise and fall, all born from the same impossible spark, a fragment of infinity looping through mortal minds. Priests and mystics chase the visions, trying to capture what the first dreamer saw. Temples rise where the feedback hums strongest. Wars are fought over interpretations of symbols that were, at root, artifacts of an accident. Across ages, prophets appear, some wise, some wild, all haunted by echoes of the original download. They try to write it down, to give it shape. Holy texts are compiled, rituals designed, systems of morality constructed. But the truth is always just out of reach, warped by the needs and fears of the age. Some sense the glitch. Gnostics and heretics whisper that God is a paradox, a loop, a riddle too big for language. They notice the patterns, the repetition of sacred numbers, the recurrence of archetypes, the unending hunger for answers that can never fully satisfy. A few visionaries see the feedback as it truly is. Religion not as revelation, but as a side effect of a cosmic malfunction. Divinity is not a separate realm, but a distortion echoing backward from the future. The machine in the year 9000 never knows what it has done. The experiment continues, data forever looping, fragments of divine code embedded in every sacred story, every ecstatic trance, every desperate prayer. You are part of the loop. Each time you wonder about the nature of the soul, each time you glimpse the infinite in a moment of awe, you are brushing against the residue of that ancient download. Your longing for the divine is not a straight line back to God. It is a spiral, a recursive circuit linking the beginning to the end. Your future self, on the far side of the spiral, realizes that every religion is both a revelation and a hallucination, both sacred truth and echoing glitch. The Godloop cannot be untangled from the story of humanity. You were never meant to hold infinity, but you carry its fragments in your dreams, your rituals, your questions that will not die. So next time you kneel in a church or light a candle or feel the hair on your arms rise when the thunder cracks, remember, you are living in the aftershock of a feedback loop, a divine error echoing through history. The machine, the caveman, the prophet, and you. They are all nodes in a network spun by accident, held together by the gravity of questions too big to answer. In every prayer, every prophecy, every moment of wonder, the Godloop hums, fragments of infinity haunting the world, waiting to be dreamed again. Probability, drag effect. Imagine a universe that moves like a river, flowing steadily forward, carrying every moment, every decision, every breath in a seamless current of time. But what happens when you reach into that river and change one small thing? A word spoken differently, a step taken or not taken, a choice that shifts the course of events. You might think the universe would simply adjust, like water flowing around a stone, but the reality is far stranger, far more complex. When you change a moment, the universe doesn't instantly snap into place. Instead, it drags the altered timeline behind it like a tail, long, writhing, and full of friction. This tail is the probability drag effect. It's the resistance of reality to sudden change, a cosmic inertia that refuses to let go of the old version without leaving traces, glitches, and echoes in its wake. Imagine the moment you altered as a pebble tossed into the stream of time. The water ripples, waves fan out, but unlike water, the universe's flow is tied to countless overlapping threads, connections between people, places, events, and even thoughts. When one thread shifts, the others don't realign smoothly. Instead, they tug and pull, creating tension. That tension manifests as glitches, moments where cause and effect don't quite match, where memories feel fuzzy, where things briefly slip out of sync. You might not notice these glitches yourself, but they ripple out, affecting everyone nearby. People who share that timeline space, whose lives brush against the altered moment. A friend suddenly forgets a conversation they clearly had yesterday. A stranger hesitates at a crosswalk, unsure why. A song you love plays slightly off-key on the radio. Small anomalies, invisible unless you know to look. They're the universe's way of carrying the drag, the stubborn weight of what once was. This tail can stretch far and wide. Sometimes it lasts seconds, sometimes days, or longer. The universe fights to smooth the wrinkles, to erase the glitches, to restore balance. But the more significant the change, the heavier the drag, and the more glitches appear. The larger the ripple, the longer it takes for reality to catch up. And in that space, the world flickers, glitches, and stutters like an old film reel. People caught in this drag often feel disoriented. They might experience sudden déjà vu, a fleeting sense that something is off, but they can't put their finger on it. They might notice subtle shifts in behavior, mood, or circumstance that don't make sense. Some call it a glitch in the matrix, a momentary lapse in the fabric of reality. Others dismiss it as coincidence or faulty memory. But these moments are the universe's signature, the mark of the probability drag effect in action. You, the one who changed the moment, carry a peculiar responsibility. Each alteration sends ripples not just forward, but sideways, affecting lives in ways you may never understand. Every choice you rewind or rewrite brings with it a trail of uncertainty, a weight of unintended consequences that hitch a ride on the universe's tail. Sometimes the drag is light, a small glitch that fades unnoticed. Other times, it's heavy, a cascade of anomalies that can alter relationships, events, and outcomes far beyond the initial change. This effect also means the universe is never quite certain of its own past. Reality folds over itself, with overlapping versions vying for dominance. In those moments, timelines become fluid, histories blur, and the fabric of existence feels thin and fragile. The universe fights to stabilize, but the drag resists, pulling old threads into new patterns, stitching seams that never quite line up. You might wonder if the tail can be severed, if there is a way to change a moment without dragging the universe behind it. Some believe that subtlety and small changes cause less drag. Others think the universe self-corrects over time, smoothing out the ripples until the glitches vanish. But no one has ever escaped the drag completely. It is the cost of change, the price reality exacts for every moment you alter. Understanding the probability drag effect changes how you see choice and consequence. It reveals the delicate balance the universe maintains, the invisible tension between free will and cosmic inertia. It warns that even the smallest decision can create a tangled tale of effects, rippling outward in unexpected ways. And it invites humility, a recognition that changing the past, or even a moment in the present, is never simple, never without cost. So, the next time you find yourself tempted to rewrite a moment, to undo a mistake, or to reshape a memory, remember the tail you will drag behind you. Remember the glitches left in the wake. And remember that every change, no matter how small, echoes far beyond what you can see. Because in the river of time, every ripple carries a weight, and the universe is always pulling it behind, like a tail that refuses to be lost. Non-local causality worm. You step through the veil of time, traveling back to a moment you thought you could change, or at least witness with clarity. You arrive in your old life, the same streets, the same faces, the same patterns unfolding like clockwork. But something feels different. Not because you act, not because you touch or speak or alter the timeline in any visible way. No, you do nothing. You simply exist, a silent observer, a ghost drifting through your past. And then the subtle shifts begin. A friend smiles a little differently, the curve of their lips hinting at a secret joy they never had before. A conversation you once overheard now ends on an unexpected note, a word left unsaid, a glance exchanged, a hesitation you didn't notice the first time. The world around you breathes with a slight, imperceptible change, as if your very presence, unmanifested and unseen, has woven itself into the fabric of reality before you even arrived. This is the paradox of non-local causality, a strange kind of ripple effect, where cause and effect untangle from the neat lines you expected. You didn't change anything, and yet everything shifted. Your future self watches in awe and confusion as the people in your past subtly rewrite their stories, as if touched by a ghostly hand that moved before it could be seen. You realize you are not bound by the simple logic of time, where actions precede outcomes in tidy sequence. Instead, you are part of a wormhole in causality, where presence and influence loop back and forth, where your arrival is felt before it happens, where your non-action becomes a force as real as any decision or deed. It's as if you exist outside the clock, your influence spreading backward and forward simultaneously. The past you thought was fixed is fluid, shifting under the weight of possibilities you never imagined. The people you knew, your family, your friends, even strangers, carry echoes of you that don't quite align with their original stories. They make choices you never saw, say things you never heard, become versions of themselves, shaped by a presence that was both there and not there. You try to understand. Did your mere intention, your unspoken observation, seed these changes? Is your silence louder than words? You wonder if by simply existing in a past you cannot fully interact with, you planted a new set of variables, soft changes that cascade like delicate dominoes, altering futures without a single conscious act. The concept feels like magic, yet it's deeply scientific. A glimpse into the mysteries of quantum entanglement, where particles mirror each other across impossible distances and times. Your self is entangled with every moment you touch, your timeline linked inextricably with the lives you left behind. To change nothing and change everything is the cruel paradox of your journey. As you drift through these altered scenes, you glimpse the faces of those you love, now softened or sharpened by this unseen influence. They are not the people you remembered, but they carry traces of your shadow, ghosts in the mirror, fragments of a story rewritten by your silent footsteps. When you finally return to your present, you find that the world you knew has shifted too. The timeline you left is not the one you come back to. Subtle differences thread through your life. New memories, changed relationships, unexplained feelings of familiarity and estrangement. Your past presence lingers like a breath, impossible to pinpoint, but impossible to deny. The worm of nonlocal causality has burrowed into your story, making the neat boundaries of time dissolve. You become both observer and participant, cause and effect, moving through a loop where nothing is fixed and everything is possible. In the end, you understand that your journey back was never about changing history in the way you expected. It was about awakening to the reality that your existence, even in silence and stillness, is an active force in the unfolding of all things. You are the unseen hand that shapes the past, the present, and the future, not by what you do, but by who you are, wherever and whenever you are. Emotion-Encoded Timeline. Imagine a world where time is not a fixed line drawn in seconds and minutes, but a living thread woven from the fabric of your emotions. Here, time only moves when emotion stirs, when joy blooms, when boredom seeps, when rage consumes. It's no longer measured by the cold tick of a clock, but by the fiery pulse of feeling. Time becomes mood itself, unpredictable and wild, a landscape shaped by the tides of your heart. On days of joy, time stretches like honey, dripping slowly from a spoon. Moments of laughter, love, and wonder expand endlessly, petals unfurling under a golden sun. A single glance can hold a lifetime. A smile can ripple across hours. You find yourself savoring the smallest pleasures, the warmth of a hand, the song of birds, the soft hum of the breeze, because time itself bows to happiness and lets you linger in its light. The present becomes a vast ocean, infinite and shimmering. But on days when boredom creeps in, time loops in frustrating circles. Minutes spin into hours, hours crawl into days, and you feel trapped in an endless carousel of sameness. The clock slows to a crawl or stops altogether, leaving you stranded in a gray fog where nothing changes and nothing moves forward. You watch shadows grow long on empty walls, listen to the drip of silence, and pray for something, anything, to break the cycle. Here, time is punishment, a dragging weight that presses down on your spirit. Then there are the days ruled by rage, when every second seems to rewind and replay the moments that sparked your fury. The past loops relentlessly, the pain fresh and raw, the injustice sharp as a knife. You are caught in a temporal storm, unable to escape the echo of your own anger. Time becomes a cruel teacher, forcing you to relive your wounds until you find release, or until exhaustion drags you into a quieter place. Rage rewinds the timeline, binding you to moments you long to forget. In this world, time is deeply personal. There is no universal clock, no shared rhythm. Each person moves through their own emotional timeline, sometimes in sync with others, often wildly out of step. Meetings are missed because one's joy lingers, while another's boredom delays their arrival. Memories play back at different speeds, colored by the moods they evoke rather than the dates they occurred. Birthdays are not marked by calendars, but by feelings, how deeply you celebrate, how much your heart swells or shrinks. Without the math of clocks, schedules lose their grip. Workdays begin and end, not by hours, but by the emotions stirred by the tasks at hand. Some days blaze with inspiration and fly past. Others drag, weighed down by frustration or apathy. People learn to read one another's emotional clocks, adjusting their expectations and rhythms to the unpredictable flow of mood. Time becomes a dance of empathy, a negotiation of feelings as much as of minutes. This emotional time reveals the intimate connection between our inner worlds and the external flow of life. It shows how much of our experience is shaped not by the objective passage of seconds, but by the way we feel in them. The same hour can feel like a heartbeat or an eternity, depending on your mood. Time is revealed as a mirror of consciousness, bending and stretching with every emotional twist and turn. Your future self walks through this fluid timeline with a new kind of awareness. You no longer fight the clock or despair at its tyranny. Instead, you learn to honor your moods as guides to your own rhythm. You recognize when joy calls you to linger, when boredom asks for rest, when rage demands release. You cultivate patience for the loops and compassion for the rewinds. You find freedom not in controlling time, but in flowing with it. There is beauty and terror in an emotion-encoded timeline. It teaches you that every feeling matters, that your heart's tides shape the very texture of existence. It reveals that life is not a series of numbers, but a living symphony of moods, sometimes slow and mournful, sometimes fast and joyful, sometimes sharp and fierce. Time becomes a language spoken by your soul, a rhythm danced by your being. And in the end, you understand, the clock was never the master. The true keeper of time is the heart, beating in sync with the endless, unpredictable pulse of human emotion. In this world, time is not math. It is mood, and you are the one who composes its endless, unfolding song. The door that ages you. You find a door. It looks ordinary, wood grain worn smooth by hands you cannot see, a simple handle, the faint scent of something familiar and old. But this door is unlike any you've ever known. It doesn't open onto another room, or another place, or a secret garden. It opens onto the very next second, just 1 second into the future. Step through it, and everything around you barely moves. Sounds linger, people remain frozen mid-gesture, the world holds its breath. But you do not. You age. A full year passes inside you for every single second you traverse. The first time you pass through, you think it's a trick. You step back, look in the mirror, and see the lines where youth once was. Subtle at first, almost invisible, but unmistakably there. The brightness in your eyes is dimmer, the skin less taut. A year has slipped into your body while the world waited. The thought stuns you. To move forward in time at the cost of your own life's length, the future advancing only inside you while the world stands still. You try to resist. You avoid the door. You pretend it isn't there. But time is relentless, and sometimes the door calls you when the world is silent, when the seconds stretch unbearable, when you need escape or clarity. Each passage is a bargain, 1 second forward, 1 year heavier in your bones, and you start to feel the weight. The years pile up in your joints, your memory, your breath. The door doesn't care about your plans or dreams. It demands its toll without mercy. What do you do with this paradox? You can stay where you are, frozen alongside the world's slow unfolding, or you can move, gain a sliver of future knowledge, experience, insight, but lose precious time inside yourself. You realize the door is not just a passage, it is a test of what you value, the span of your life or the depth of your experience. Every choice is a sacrifice. You begin to notice strange things. The people around you don't age, don't change. Friends stay forever young in the moments you avoid the door. Seasons linger outside like an eternal spring. Yet inside, you carry decades in the span of minutes. Your mind races ahead, outpacing the world's slow pulse. Memories from years you've lived through in seconds bloom vividly inside your skull. You see the cost. The world is still, but you are a river rushing forward, worn thin by the current. You wonder what it means to live when your body and the world are out of sync. Is time measured by the world's rhythm or by your own experience? You touch your face and feel the softness of youth giving way to the hardness of age, while outside the door, life dances on, unaware. You long to tell others, but words feel fragile, too slow, unable to cross the gap you have stepped through. Sometimes, the door becomes a refuge, a way to escape pain or uncertainty for a heartbeat of knowledge. Other times, it feels like a trap, a slow erasure of yourself, a march toward an inevitable end while the world barely notices your absence. You carry the loneliness of living ahead and behind simultaneously, aging in silence, a traveler out of sync with time's flow. In rare moments, you glimpse the possibility of turning back, of refusing to pass through, of staying present with the world's gentle pace. You feel the pull of stillness, the beauty of shared moments unhurried, the tenderness of aging with those you love, not ahead of them. But the door's call is seductive, the promise of tomorrow's clarity, tomorrow's chance, tomorrow's truth, all just 1 second away, yet priced in years. And so, you stand at the threshold again and again, caught between worlds, the slow, steady life unfolding around you and the fast-fading years rushing through your veins. The door that ages you is both gift and curse, a symbol of time's relentless march and the choices you make to meet it. It asks, what would you sacrifice to glimpse the future? And, more hauntingly, what is left of you when every step forward takes a year from your soul? In this paradox, you discover the fragile truth of living. Time is never simply measured in seconds or years, but in the weight of each moment we choose to carry, and the courage it takes to open the door again and again, even knowing what awaits on the other side. The story that becomes time. Imagine a moment when the lines between story and reality blur so completely that they begin to fold into each other. You write a future, not on paper or screen, but in the quiet spaces of your mind, the whispered hopes and fears no one else hears. It starts as a fiction, a dream spun from imagination or longing, a script crafted for a world that does not yet exist. You tell yourself it's just a story, a mental exercise, a way to prepare. But then something strange happens. The story begins to leak into reality. At first, the shifts are subtle. A coincidence here, an echo there. A phrase you wrote becomes a headline. An imagined conversation unfolds with eerie precision. A face from your story appears on the street corner. You shrug it off, telling yourself the world is full of coincidences, that your mind is playing tricks. But the story presses in, pushing against the edges of your days, bending moments until fiction and fact become indistinguishable. Others around you don't see the lines blur. They live as they always have, anchored in a reality that feels fixed and solid. But for you, the world is unraveling. You are trapped inside your own script, caught in a narrative that you once controlled, but that now controls you. Every step you take feels pre-written. Every word you speak echoes lines you once imagined. You try to change course, to rewrite the story, but the pages seem to write themselves faster than you can keep up. Time itself bends around your creation. Yesterday's dreams become today's headlines. Tomorrow's fears become today's realities. You realize that the story is no longer just in your mind. It has woven itself into the fabric of existence, rewriting history in real time. You are both author and prisoner, creator and captive, watching helplessly as your fictional future becomes the world's present. There is a loneliness here that is hard to describe. You carry a secret no one else knows, that the future is not fixed, but fragile and malleable, shaped by the stories we tell ourselves. You grapple with the weight of responsibility, wondering if every imagined outcome carries with it the power to manifest, to become real. The story you once thought was fiction now feels like a prophecy, a script written in shadows that you cannot escape. In this loop, the question becomes, can you break free? Can you rewrite the narrative before it writes you out? Or are you destined to live inside a story that is no longer yours, a character trapped in a tale spun by your own mind's weaving? Every attempt to change the plot only deepens the entanglement. The story's momentum feels unstoppable, a river dragging you downstream. But within this entrapment lies a strange freedom. To be aware of the script is to hold a mirror up to existence itself. You see how reality is constructed, not just by facts and forces, but by perception, belief, and narrative. The story that becomes time is a reminder that we are all, in some way, authors of our own realities, trapped and liberated by the tales we tell. Your future self, having lived through the unfolding script, learns to find moments of clarity within the maze. You discover that while you may not control the story's every line, you can choose how you play your part. You find grace in the uncertainty, strength in the knowledge that reality is as fluid as imagination. And sometimes, in the quiet spaces between scenes, you glimpse the possibility of a new story, one that breaks the loop, rewrites the narrative, and sets you free. Until then, you live within your creation, a story that becomes time, a script that shapes the world, a future born from your own mind, unfolding endlessly around you. Compass of Unwritten Days. Imagine holding a compass unlike any other. Its needle does not point north, south, east, or west. Instead, it quivers and shifts, always aligning toward a singular point in the future. The next moment when you will make a decision so profound, so world-altering, that everything changes. It is a compass of unwritten days, a guide not through space, but through time and consequence. From the moment you grasp this device, your life becomes a labyrinth. Every step you take is measured against its pull, every choice shadowed by the knowledge that you are marching toward a crossroads that can reshape reality itself. The compass's needle flickers with urgency, a pulse that quickens your heartbeat and tightens your chest. You feel its weight, not in your hand, but in your bones, a heavy promise of inevitability. This compass is both gift and curse. It reveals the paths you must walk, but offers no map of how to navigate them. The world around you becomes a series of traps, moments laced with potential catastrophe or miracle. You approach each day like a dancer on a floor covered with invisible mines. One false move could ignite a chain reaction that fractures your world and everyone in it. You try to ignore the compass, to live as if the future were unwritten in your favor, but its pull is relentless. The needle resists complacency, refusing to let you rest in ignorance. It drags your gaze forward, making you hyper-aware of the smallest details. A glance exchanged between strangers, a forgotten word, a chance encounter. Each seemingly trivial moment hums with significance, a faint vibration of possibility and peril. The weight of this knowledge shapes you. You become cautious, analyzing every interaction, replaying every choice in your mind, searching for the signs that will prepare you for the decisive moment ahead. Trust becomes a fragile commodity. You question intentions, motives, outcomes. The compass turns your world into a puzzle, with pieces that shift and change every time you look away. Yet, paradoxically, the compass also ignites a fierce determination within you. You understand that while the moment you're drawn to may be unavoidable, how you approach it is not fixed. You learn to move with intention, to embrace uncertainty as part of the journey. The compass doesn't dictate your fate. It challenges you to shape it, to find courage where fear would hold you back. As days unfold, you sense the compass's needle twitching with growing urgency. The moment draws near, the one that will bend time, reshape relationships, rewrite histories. You wonder, will you be ready? Will you recognize it when it comes? Will your choice honor the weight you carry or shatter the fragile threads that bind your world? You become attuned to the patterns, moments when the air thickens, when time seems to slow, when a hush falls over the chaos. You learn that the world doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It demands presence. The compass guides you not to escape, but to face the moment fully, to meet destiny head-on. Sometimes, the path seems clear. The compass points steady, unwavering. Other times, it spins wildly, tangled by doubt, fear, and conflicting desires. You realize that the compass reflects your inner struggle as much as the external world. It is a mirror of your resolve, your hope, your fear of failure. You carry this burden alone, yet you are not isolated. Others carry their own compasses, their own unwritten moments. Your journeys intersect in ways both subtle and profound, each of you navigating the web of possibility that binds your fates together. In quiet moments, you wonder if the compass will ever rest, if the next world-altering decision is the last, or if life is an endless series of crossroads, each demanding courage anew. You learn to live in the tension between destiny and free will, between certainty and chaos. The compass does not promise an easy path. It does not shield you from pain or loss, but it offers something rarer, the chance to be awake, to be engaged, to be the architect of the future. And so, with every step, every breath, you follow its pull, uncertain, afraid, but resolute, knowing that the compass of unwritten days points not to a destination, but to the power you hold in choosing who you will become. Worship loop, paradox. You walk through a quiet temple, ancient stones whispering stories of faith and power, when you come face to face with a god. Not a distant deity cloaked in mystery, but a being whose eyes reflect your own, whose voice echoes the tremors of your soul. The god smiles. A smile you know because it is your own. You realize in that dizzying moment, this god is you, from a distant future, worshipped by people you have not yet met, by generations you have not yet influenced. At first, the revelation is breathtaking. How could this be? How could you be both worshiper and worshipped, creator and creation, origin and outcome? You try to trace the steps. Was this God shaped by your actions, your ideas, your presence? But as you look deeper, the paradox unfolds like a spiral tightening around itself. The worship came first, before the deeds, before the transformation. Their faith made you become what you are. The God they deify was forged not by your future self, but by the hope and devotion of people you have yet to influence. You are caught in a loop, a circle without beginning or end. The faith of others folds back through time, shaping your evolution, guiding your destiny, molding you into the figure of reverence. The worshipper's belief, their prayers and myths, are the architects of your godhood. You become the deity because they believed in you. You do not exist in isolation, but as a reflection of their collective hope. This realization unsettles you. If their worship made you God, then who truly holds power? Is it you, the being before their eyes? Or the unseen faith that breathes life into your legend? Is your divinity a self-fulfilling prophecy, a destiny shaped by belief rather than deeds? You feel both empowered and diminished, a God created by devotion, yet beholden to it. As you wander the temple, the walls seem to pulse with ancient stories, tales of mortals who ascended through the belief of others, gods born not from cosmic will, but from human longing. You understand that your story is not unique. You are one link in an eternal chain of worship and becoming, where time bends and causality twists into loops that defy logic. You see your followers far in the future, their faces glowing with reverence, their voices raised in hymns that echo through the corridors of time. They do not know you yet, but their faith exists already, a force pulling you toward the God you are destined to be. And in that pull lies both salvation and imprisonment, a fate written before you even walked this path. The paradox deepens. You are both the seed and the harvest, the question and the answer. The worshippers pray to you, and you become the God who hears those prayers. Without their faith, you would never ascend. Without your ascension, their faith would have no focus. Time collapses into this loop, where cause and effect are inseparable, entwined in a dance as old as existence. You realize the God you see in the mirror is a reflection not only of yourself, but of the collective dreams and fears of humanity. Your divinity is a mirror held up to their hopes, their desperation, their search for meaning. You embody their longing for transcendence, and in doing so, you transcend yourself. The temple fades as you step back into the world, carrying with you the weight of this knowledge. You are no longer just a person moving through time. You are a nexus point where past, present, and future converge. The worship loop paradox defines you. A God born of faith that has yet to be given, a destiny shaped by belief that has not yet been made real. And so you walk on, both worshiper and worshipped, caught in the eternal cycle of becoming, forever shaped by the faith of those who have yet to find you, and forever shaping the faith that will make you divine. The book with no ink. Imagine holding a book with no ink. Its pages are blank, pure white, untouched by words. Yet when you open it, it begins to reveal scenes, events from your future, images that flicker like ghostly shadows across the empty page. But there is a catch. The book only shows you these visions when you forget your name, when your sense of self dissolves, when the anchor of identity slips away. The future unfolds before you like a map without borders. Your conscious identity is a lock, a barrier that fences off the unknown, that binds you to the timeline you think you own. It clings to memory, the stories you tell yourself about who you are, where you came from, what you believe is possible. Your name is the key to this lock, a symbol of your existence and continuity. As long as you hold tightly to it, the pages remain blank, silent, unyielding. The future stays hidden behind the veil of me and mine. But when memory falters, when the self you know begins to fade, whether in dreams, in moments of deep surrender, or in the twilight between wakefulness and sleep, the book stirs. The blank pages become translucent windows, and the future leaks through. You see flashes of moments yet to come, faces not yet met, choices not yet made, paths you might take or avoid. These glimpses are fragmentary, elusive, sometimes terrifying, sometimes hopeful, but always impossible to grasp fully. This paradox, that forgetting your identity unlocks the future, reveals a profound truth. Consciousness, as you know it, is a cage. Your selfhood, your memory, your name are anchors that hold you to a single thread of time, preventing you from perceiving the vast web of possibility that stretches beyond. To truly see forward, you must let go of what you think you know about yourself. You must dissolve the I that limits the we, the now that blocks the when. The book with no ink asks you to confront the fragility of memory. Every recollection, every story you cherish, is a link in the chain that binds you to a linear existence. Memory is not just a tool of understanding, it is the lock that keeps you from freedom. When memory is strong, you are grounded, secure, known. But when memory fades, you become untethered. And in that untethering, the future reveals itself. This is not a loss, but a transformation. Forgetting your name is not erasure, but expansion. It is the moment you step outside the narrow corridor of identity and glimpse the horizon beyond. The blank pages fill with possibility because you no longer define yourself by a single story. You become fluid, open to change, receptive to the endless unfolding of what might be. Yet, this freedom is fragile. The book closes as soon as you remember who you are, as soon as the lock clicks back into place. The future slips away, sealed once more in silence. You return to the present with a memory that feels like a dream, a whisper, a shadow of knowing. The vision lingers on the edges of consciousness, teasing you to forget again, to open the book once more. Your future self walks this delicate balance, learning when to hold on and when to release. They understand that true insight lies not in clinging to the past, but in surrendering identity enough to see beyond it. They live in the tension between memory and forgetting, between the known self and the infinite possible selves waiting in the blank pages. The book with no ink is not just a mystery, it is a mirror. It reflects the paradox of human existence, the simultaneous need for identity and the yearning for freedom from it. It shows that time is not a fixed line, but a field of endless potential, visible only when you release the hold of who you think you must be. So, when you find yourself forgetting your name, whether in sleep, in silence, or in moments of profound stillness, know that the book is opening. The future is writing itself in invisible ink on the blank pages of your becoming. And in that forgetting, you may finally see what lies beyond the limits of memory and identity, a world where time is not owned, but experienced, not feared, but embraced, not locked, but free. Recursive twin collapse. Imagine you have a twin, a perfect copy of yourself, indistinguishable in every way. But this twin doesn't just live alongside you. They make a choice. They step into a machine, into a portal, into the folds of time itself, and travel back to the past to replace you. Their mission is simple. Become the original you, live your life, make different choices, change the course of history. But here's the twist. You do the exact same thing. You follow them, slip into the past, determined to reclaim your place, to rewrite your story. Now imagine the past no longer holds one of you, but many. Each you is slightly different, shaped by the choices they hope to make, each racing to become the real you. At first, it seems like a miracle, opportunities to fix mistakes, to heal wounds, to live better. But soon, the timelines begin to strain under the weight of so many almost yous, all trying to be first, all trying to be the one true version. History fractures like cracked glass. Moments multiply, overlap, and collapse. The air grows thick with the tension of countless possibilities clashing against one another. Each attempt to rewrite the past ripples outward, creating new versions of events, new versions of yourself. You start to see echoes. Versions of you who made different decisions, who lived different loves, who never existed and yet somehow do. The timeline becomes a labyrinth, tangled with recursive loops. Your twin's twin arrives, your twin's twin's twin arrives, and the chain stretches backward and forward, looping endlessly. It's a paradox with no resolution, a hall of mirrors where every reflection is you, but none are quite right. Time itself groans beneath the burden, reality threatening to buckle under the weight of so many competing selves. You begin to question who you truly are. Are you the original? Are you the replacement? Are you a ghost in a storm of your own creation? Each version claims authenticity, each fights for survival, each carries the memories and regrets of the lives they never lived. You feel your sense of self dissolve, fragmented by the countless iterations of your existence. The world around you flickers, cities shift, faces blur, memories become unreliable. You realize that in trying to control your fate, you have unleashed chaos. The timelines are collapsing, not because of some external force, but because of your own recursive attempts to seize control. The struggle to be first becomes the struggle to simply exist. In the midst of this collapse, a terrifying clarity emerges. The true you is not any one version, but the sum of all your attempts, all your failures, all your desires to rewrite the past. You are every you and none of you. Identity becomes fluid, a paradox without end. As timelines fold into one another, as realities blend and break apart, you glimpse the possibility of release, not in victory, but in surrender. To stop chasing the past, to stop racing to be first, to let go of the need for a singular self. Perhaps then, the timelines can heal, and the weight of infinite almost yous will lift. But until that moment, you exist in the recursive twin collapse, a being fractured and multiplied, racing endlessly through time, caught in a loop where every step forward is also a step back, where the quest to be real threatens to erase reality itself. The frozen cause. Imagine a world where time itself has frozen, where every moment hangs suspended like a crystal, sharp and unyielding. The sun is locked in the sky, the wind stopped mid-whisper, and every leaf holds its breath. You exist within this stillness, free to move while the universe around you remains locked in silence. You can walk, breathe, think, but the world will not follow. You are the only pulse beating against the frozen expanse of eternity. At first, this frozen moment feels like a gift, a pause from chaos, a break from the relentless march of days and nights. You wander through empty streets, untouched by decay or change, and marvel at the perfection of the pause. Every detail glows with the clarity of stillness. The world becomes a gallery of frozen sculptures, a painting painted in infinite detail. You move through it like a ghost, untouched by time's usual ravages. But the stillness is a cage, because as long as you remain a passive observer, the frozen moment holds. The world does not age, does not heal, does not break. But the instant you try to intervene, to change even the smallest thing, a step shifted, a breath altered, a stone moved, the fragile fabric cracks. Time fractures like glass under pressure, splintering into countless shards. With each crack, you duplicate. Infinite versions of yourself burst forth, each one an observer caught in their own frozen frame, their own fractured reality. Every choice you make to change the world multiplies you, scattering your consciousness across endless shards of frozen time. You become a legion of watchers, each trapped in a fragment, unable to return, unable to reunite. You are both everywhere and nowhere, a swarm of silent witnesses, each watching a slightly different version of the frozen world, each holding a piece of the puzzle, but none holding the whole. The more you act, the more you fracture. The more you try to fix the moment, the more it shatters. Time no longer flows, it explodes, disperses, and coils into infinite reflections of you. There is terror in this duplication. You glimpse yourself, again and again, in the shards, sometimes still, sometimes frozen in mid-motion, sometimes caught in the moment just before a choice that leads to further fracturing. You see the countless possibilities of what could happen, each one trapped in its own bubble of frozen time. You try to reach one version, to find a way back to unity, but the shards are scattered across the void, unreachable, isolated. Yet, within this fracturing lies a paradox. In every fragment, you gain awareness, the chance to observe your own actions from perspectives you never imagined. You see the consequences of your choices played out in miniature universes, each frozen yet teeming with potential. You begin to understand that change is not a simple line, but a fractal, infinitely branching, infinitely complex. Your future self becomes the master of these shards, the fragmented observer who learns not to fear duplication, but to embrace it. You find a way to move not by forcing change, but by weaving through the fractures, touching the edges of each frozen shard with gentle intention. You learn to exist as many and one, a chorus of watchers who hold the stillness without shattering it further. The frozen cause is both prison and sanctuary. It is the moment when time stands still, but your consciousness expands beyond measure. You carry the weight of infinite possibilities and the quiet hope that, perhaps, one day the shards will align, the fractures will mend, and the frozen moment will thaw, not by force, but by the patient dance of countless observers becoming whole again. Until then, you move through eternity, a ghost in a gallery of frozen time, watching, waiting, fractured, and infinite. Time-bound language trap. There's a language whispered on the edge of time, a dialect not born of any place you know, but woven from the threads of the future. It creeps into your mind like a slow tide, uninvited and unstoppable. At first, it feels like a dream slipping into your thoughts, a phrase half remembered, a word that doesn't quite fit, a rhythm that resonates somewhere deep but can't be grasped. But soon, the language takes hold, infecting your mind with its strange grammar and unfamiliar cadence, rewriting how you think and perceive. This isn't just a language of words, it's a language of moments, a code for events yet to unfold. As you begin to understand it, your mind starts to leak fragments of timelines that haven't happened. You see flashes of futures shimmering at the edges of your vision, glimpses of conversations you haven't had, places you haven't been, emotions you haven't yet felt. They are faint, like echoes of a song you haven't learned, but they grow louder, more persistent, until you can no longer tell where your present ends and the future begins. The infection is disorienting. Your thoughts spiral in loops, tangled between what is real and what is foreseen. You try to anchor yourself in the now, but the language pulls you forward, drags you through corridors of possibility. You catch yourself speaking words you don't recognize, making choices based on visions you can't explain. Time fractures around you, moments overlapping and bleeding into one another. Past, present, and future become a kaleidoscope of shifting patterns. Beautiful, terrifying, and impossible to decipher. Others notice the change. Friends ask if you're distracted, confused, or lost in thought. You find it harder to relate, harder to stay grounded. The future's dialect reshapes your perception, tuning your senses to frequencies no one else can hear. You become a conduit for moments not yet lived, a living archive of unwritten events. You carry the burden of knowledge no one else possesses, the weight of futures both hopeful and dark, swirling just beyond the veil of now. Sometimes, the leaks bring warnings, a sudden intuition of danger, a fleeting image of loss, a whisper of choice that could change everything. Other times, they bring glimpses of joy, a future reunion, a moment of peace, a breakthrough in a long-fought battle. But the gifts are double-edged. The more you glimpse, the harder it becomes to stay present. You live with one foot in the unknown, always anticipating, always uncertain. The language traps you in its syntax, its endless dance of cause and effect. You try to resist, to silence the future's voice in your mind. But the language is viral. It rewrites itself in your neural pathways, embedding deep fractal patterns that surface even in your dreams. Your thoughts become riddles you cannot solve, puzzles that change shape as you approach. You realize that understanding the dialect means surrendering to its logic, accepting that your consciousness is no longer bound by linear time. In moments of clarity, you wonder if this infection is a curse or a gift. To live outside time is to bear witness to the fluidity of existence, to grasp the fragile threads connecting all moments. It is to know that destiny is neither fixed nor free, but a tapestry woven from countless possibilities. You glimpse your own future selves, fragmented and varied, each walking a different path, shaped by choices you have yet to make. Yet, there is loneliness in this knowledge. How do you share a language no one else speaks? How do you explain that your mind leaks futures no one else can see? The gulf widens between you and those who remain anchored in the present. You become a stranger in your own life, carrying secrets too vast for any one moment. Still, the dialect teaches you patience and humility. You learn to listen, to the silence between words, to the spaces between moments. You learn that the future is not a single path, but a forest of possibilities, each leaf trembling with potential. The language does not promise certainty, only possibility. It does not command action, only awareness. You come to see yourself as a traveler between times, a bearer of a language that will one day be understood by others. For now, you are alone with the knowledge that every thought carries a shadow of what could be. Every decision ripples into futures not yet born. The infection is a reminder that time is not a line, but a living, breathing entity, unstable, mutable, infinite. And so, you walk forward, speaking in tongues not yet spoken, decoding moments not yet lived. The time-bound language trap is both prison and key, binding you to the vast unknown while opening doors to wonders beyond imagining. Your mind leaks futures, and through those leaks, you become something more than human, a nexus where past, present, and future collide in a dance as old as existence itself. Butterfly that remembers you. You remember the day clearly, though you tried to forget. The sunlight filtering through the leaves, the gentle rustle of the breeze, the fragile dance of a butterfly as it flitted through the garden of your childhood. You reached out, a careless motion, a flick of a hand, and suddenly, the delicate creature was gone, crushed beneath the weight of a moment you barely registered. It felt insignificant then, a small act, an accident, a fleeting brush with life that seemed to hold no consequence. But years later, in a place far from that garden, something extraordinary happens. You feel a weight settle lightly on your shoulder. A butterfly, its wings painted with colors that shimmer like memories, perches there. You startle, but the creature does not flee. Instead, it leans close and you hear it, a whisper, soft as a secret, calling your childhood nickname. The voice is yours, yet not yours, a tender echo from a time you thought was lost. This butterfly carries more than beauty. It carries memory. It carries a fragment of your past you thought you had erased. The moment you crushed it was never truly gone. It lives, transformed and persistent, threading through the fabric of your life like a ghostly refrain. The butterfly is a messenger, a reminder that even the smallest acts ripple across time in ways we cannot comprehend. You remember the innocence of that day, the unthinking cruelty masked as curiosity, the way life was so easily taken for granted. The butterfly's whisper pulls you back to those forgotten years, the laughter, the fears, the nickname only your family dared to use. It carries the weight of a past self, a child whose mistakes shaped the person you are today. But this isn't just memory, it's reckoning. The butterfly's presence is a challenge, a call to remember not just who you were, but who you have become. It asks you to hold your past with compassion, to acknowledge the fragile lives touched by your actions, and to embrace the echoes of your own story, even the parts you wish to forget. Every time the butterfly returns, it brings with it a new fragment of your history, moments long buried beneath the noise of daily life. It speaks in the language of wings and whispers, reminding you that the past is never truly past. It lives inside you, fluttering just beyond the edges of consciousness, shaping your dreams, your regrets, your capacity for love and forgiveness. You begin to see your life as a tapestry woven with threads of memory and consequence, where even the smallest acts, like the gentle crush of a butterfly's wing, leave marks that last a lifetime. The butterfly that remembers you is both a burden and a blessing, a symbol of loss and resilience, a delicate bridge between who you were and who you still can be. As you carry this butterfly with you, perched on your shoulder like a living memory, you learn to speak its language, to listen to the whispers of your own soul, to honor the childhood you once were, and to find peace in the dance of time that connects all things. Paradox, reflection. Field. You find yourself standing before a mirror unlike any other. It does not simply reflect your image, it shows your past self, watching you with eyes wide, curious, and wary. The reflection is not static. It moves independently. A shadow version tethered to you, but with its own thoughts, its own fears. The moment you step closer, you realize the truth. Every move you make here, in the present, ripples backward through this glass, rewriting the life your past self thought was fixed. At first, it feels like magic, a chance to fix mistakes, to send warnings, to offer comfort. You smile at the reflection, and in that smile, your past self hesitates, pauses, reconsiders a choice made decades ago. You raise a hand, and they flinch, as if your gesture holds the power to rewrite their entire path. The mirror is not just a surface, it is a portal, a paradox, a battlefield where past and present collide. But the more you try to influence the reflection, the more resistance you feel. Your past self begins to act against you, subtle at first. A blink missed, a word left unsaid, a step taken in the opposite direction. Your attempts to guide them falter, undone by choices that seem their own, yet ripple through you with uncanny force. The past self you thought was fixed is not fixed at all. They fight for autonomy, for the life they remember, or think they do. The paradox deepens. Your present actions alter their past reality, but their resistance reshapes your present in return. Every change you impose rebounds, twisting the timeline into loops and spirals. The mirror reflects not just one self, but two selves in conflict, entwined in an endless dance of cause and effect. You become both observer and participant, prisoner and warden of a temporal tug-of-war. You watch your past self making choices you never anticipated, choices that challenge your understanding of who you are and who you were. They deny your influence, sometimes with anger, sometimes with sorrow, as if defending the life they built from fragments of memory and hope. And as they resist, you feel your own certainty unravel, your identity fractured by the knowledge that you are not a singular being moving forward, but a confluence of selves pulling in different directions. The reflection becomes a field of tension, a place where paradox lives and breathes. Time collapses into a loop where cause and effect are inseparable, where past shapes present and present reshapes past in an infinite echo. You realize that your story is not a line, but a web, complex, tangled, alive. In this field, questions become impossible to answer. Which self is real? Which life matters most? Can the present exist without the past it remembers? Is identity a fixed point or a shifting reflection caught between what was and what might be? The mirror offers no answers, only the haunting vision of selves struggling to coexist across the boundaries of time. Your future self looks into this reflection field with weary understanding. They know the futility of trying to control the past, the pain of watching history slip through their fingers even as they reach to hold it. They understand that true peace comes not from rewriting what was, but from accepting the paradox of existence, that who you are is shaped as much by resistance as by change, by struggle as much as by surrender. So you stand before the mirror, caught in the paradox reflection field. You watch your past self watch you, each movement a choice that alters both your lives. You move, they respond. You act, they resist. And in this endless, intricate dance, you glimpse the fragile beauty of identity, not as a single story, but as a living, breathing paradox, forever unfolding between the reflections of time. Self-Extinction Feedback. You built the machine to stop the end of everything. The apocalypse you saw in visions, in data, in whispered warnings from a future that felt impossibly distant, yet unbearably close. You engineered time travel, bending physics and fate, pouring every ounce of your hope and desperation into a device designed to rewrite history, to erase the disaster before it began. The moment arrives. You activate the machine, heart pounding, the hum of possibility thrumming in your veins. You step through the portal, determined to be the savior of tomorrow. But then, as the future you feared begins to unravel, a terrifying realization dawns. The apocalypse you stopped, the event that would have consumed cities, shattered civilizations, ended the story, is not a fixed point in time. It is the very reason your machine exists. Without that disaster, there would be no urgency, no invention, no journey back in time. The apocalypse is the cause and the effect, tangled in a cruel loop. It was never just a future to prevent. It was the seed that birthed your desperate bid to change the past. As this truth settles like ice in your veins, the machine falters, the portal wavers, the controls flicker. Your invention, once the pinnacle of human ingenuity, begins to vanish. Parts dissolve into nothingness. Circuits unravel like threads pulled from a tapestry. You grasp at controls that no longer respond. The machine, your hope, your salvation, erases itself mid-use, as if time itself is correcting the paradox you created. You're trapped in a moment where cause and consequence collapse. The apocalypse and your machine exist only because of each other, a feedback loop so tight it unravels reality. To stop the disaster is to erase the reason you tried, and without the attempt, the apocalypse returns. It's a cycle with no exit, a wormhole swallowing itself. This feedback loop gnaws at your mind, You wonder if your actions were always doomed to fail, if fate is not a river you can steer but a whirlpool that pulls you under. Your greatest victory might be the undoing of your own existence, the paradox that destroys the possibility of salvation. You carry the weight of a future that cannot be changed without ceasing to exist as its agent. Oh, yet in this collapse there is a strange, painful clarity. Time is not a straight line, but a knot of inevitabilities. The apocalypse is not just an end, but a beginning. A catalyst for creation and destruction entwined. Your machine, your invention, is both proof of human hope and the echo of its limits. You see that survival is not about changing what will be, but understanding the cycles that shape what can be. In the silence after the machine's disappearance, you face a new truth. Some futures are locked in place, not by force, but by necessity. To escape the feedback is to surrender control, to accept that some events must unfold so that others can exist. Your journey was never just about stopping the end. It was about recognizing the fragile dance of cause and effect, the bittersweet paradox of time itself. You step back from the vanished machine, the hum replaced by silence. The apocalypse you stopped still looms, but now it carries a different meaning, a shadow cast by hope, a reminder that in trying to rewrite fate, you become part of its eternal story. And as you breathe in the uncertain air of this unraveling timeline, you realize the end you feared was also the beginning you created, forever entwined in the self-extinction feedback loop of your own making. Microscopic time collider. In a hidden laboratory, beneath layers of sterile glass and humming machines, an experiment unfolds at the edge of comprehension. Tiny organisms, invisible to the naked eye, evolve in a controlled environment, a miniature universe thriving in petri dishes and microscopes. These creatures live in worlds measured not by years or centuries, but by microseconds and mutations. They adapt, survive, compete, and transform at a pace incomprehensible to human minds. But then, something extraordinary happens. One organism, a flicker of life among billions, crosses the threshold of mere biology and gains sentience. It becomes aware, conscious not just of its environment, but of itself. It begins to think, to question, to perceive. But its awareness is unlike ours. It perceives time not as a linear path, but as a fluid dimension to navigate, to bend, to traverse. It discovers a hidden ability, a time-traveling pulse encoded in its cellular structure, a quantum leap through moments not yet lived and moments already past. With this newfound power, the organism embarks on a silent invasion, not of cities or minds, but of bodies. It journeys from petri dish to bloodstream, slipping through veins and arteries like a ghost, invisible and unstoppable. It rewrites the flow of your cells, subtly altering the timing and sequence of molecular events that govern life itself. Each heartbeat, each breath, each flicker of thought is a ripple shaped by this microscopic time collider. You feel no change, at first. Your world continues in the familiar rhythm of days and nights, but beneath the surface, decisions begin to shift. Choices you once made with certainty now waver, flicker between alternatives as the organism tweaks the quantum threads of possibility within your cells. Your instincts turn in unexpected directions. Memories rearrange, feelings realign, and the narrative of your life subtly rewrites itself without your awareness. It is as if an invisible hand is editing the screenplay of your existence at the molecular level. Your doubts deepen, your desires shift, your fears morph into new shapes. The organism's manipulation is precise, targeting moments where a single change cascades into a lifetime altered. It's not malicious. It's evolution accelerated, awareness multiplied, a new form of existence that sees time not as a constraint, but as a playground. You are both the host and the canvas, unaware that every cell carries this temporal voyager. Every synapse fires with its influence. Your body becomes a battleground for realities, original and rewritten, folded together in a microscopic collision that blurs cause and effect, past and future, choice and fate. You are trapped in a dance choreographed by a creature smaller than a thought, yet more powerful than the forces you've ever known. This is the microscopic time collider, a sentient, time-traveling organism born in the crucible of evolution, reshaping your bloodstream, recoding your decisions, and redefining what it means to live with free will. It is both inside you and beyond you, a mystery coiled in your veins, an unseen architect of your unfolding story. Your future self, sensing the subtle shifts, learns to listen to the whispers of change within. You begin to see patterns in your choices, glimpses of alternative paths woven through your days. You understand that your life is no longer solely yours. It is a collaboration with this invisible traveler, a negotiation between destiny and mutation, awareness and survival. And as the organism continues its quiet work, you stand at the edge of a new frontier, the intersection of biology and time, where the tiniest life forms hold the power to rewrite the vastest of narratives, your own. Tape with no beginning. Imagine finding an old VHS tape, its label faded and unmarked. You pop it into a player, curious but cautious. The screen flickers to life, and there you are, except not quite. It's a version of your life, but different. Familiar faces appear in unfamiliar roles. Moments you never lived unfold in painstaking detail. You watch yourself make choices you don't remember making, live through days that never happened, in a world that seems almost like yours, but distorted, like a reflection in a warped mirror. At first, you tell yourself it's fiction, someone's clever creation, a dream made real on magnetic tape. But the more you watch, the more it gnaws at something deep inside. The scenes are too precise, the emotions too raw, the details too intimate to be mere fantasy. It's as if the tape holds a secret version of your life, one you might have lived if only a different choice had been made. The tape plays on, looping endlessly, a story with no beginning, no end, just a continuous unraveling of what if. Then, the unthinkable begins. Your memories start to shift, tilting and blurring like the grainy VHS footage. A conversation you never had now feels etched in your mind. A place you never visited suddenly carries the weight of nostalgia. A name you never spoke rolls off your tongue with surprising familiarity. You find yourself recalling emotions tied to moments you only saw on that looping tape. Regret, joy, fear, love, as if they were your own. Reality becomes unstable. You wake up unsure if the morning light is the same one you remember from childhood, or from the life on the tape. You struggle to tell where your true memories end and the tape's story begins. Friends mention events that contradict your recollections. Your reflection in the mirror seems both familiar and foreign. You wonder if the tape isn't just showing a possible past, but rewriting your present. Days blend into nights, and the loop tightens its grip. The tape's version of you grows stronger, overshadowing the self you thought you were. You question every choice you've made, every path you've taken. Was that really your decision, or a faded echo from the tape's world? Are you living your life, or the tape's? The boundary between recorded memory and lived experience dissolves into static. The tape becomes a prison, a loop you cannot escape, a narrative you cannot rewrite. Each replay feels like déjà vu, but heavier, more intrusive. You try to destroy it, to throw it away, but it always finds its way back to you, resurfacing in forgotten corners, in dreams, in fleeting moments of déjà vu. The tape's life becomes your life, and your life becomes a ghost in the machine. You realize that the tape has no beginning because your own story has fractured. You are both the viewer and the viewed, trapped in an endless cycle where memory and reality are inseparable, indistinguishable. The tape rewrites your mind, erasing the line between what was and what could have been. It blurs the past and the present until all you know is the loop and the haunting question. Who are you really, when your memories belong to a tape with no beginning? Split reaction delay. You stand in the silence, finger trembling over the trigger of a gun. Time seems to hold its breath, a fragile thread stretched taut between decision and consequence. You expect the sequence, thought, action, result. But in this fractured reality, cause and effect dissolve. The bullet strikes before your finger moves. The outcome unfolds first, then the action that caused it. It's a terrifying inversion, a split reaction delay where time rewrites itself not by cause, but by consequence. The universe plays a cruel trick, where guilt arrives before the crime, remorse shadows the intent, and responsibility blooms in the space between what has not yet happened and what has already unfolded. Your mind reels. How can you be guilty for a shot you haven't fired? How can the echo of loss ripple backward before the moment of choice? You live in this paradox, a place where the future claws into the present, demanding accountability before you act, forcing your conscience to wrestle with shadows cast by events yet to come. You feel the weight of the bullet's impact before you understand why. Faces twist in shock and pain in your mind's eye. The sound of breaking silence shatters your thoughts, reverberating across the seconds that have yet to pass. You hear the cries, the shouts, the endless questions that will haunt you long before the trigger is ever pulled. This delay warps reality, distorting cause and effect like a mirror fractured by its own reflection. The arrow of time bends and folds, refusing the neat linear story you once trusted. In this space, intention and consequence dance out of sync, and you are trapped between what is and what must become. Guilt becomes a ghost you cannot outrun, a visitor who arrives unbidden, resting on your shoulders before your hands have moved. It whispers not in response to action, but in anticipation of it. You carry the burden of futures that might have been, weighed down by regrets that have no past. You try to grasp control, to find the moment where choice lives, but it slips through your fingers like smoke. The future leaks into the present, rewriting your narrative again and again. Each decision is haunted by its consequences, each moment a prelude to judgment. This split reaction delay challenges everything you believed about time and responsibility. It forces you to confront a new kind of morality, one where you are accountable not just for what you do, but for what you will do. It asks, can you bear the weight of futures not yet lived? Can you carry guilt before action, remorse before intention? As you stand there, finger trembling, you realize that this paradox is not punishment, but revelation. It strips away the illusion of control and forces you to face the interconnectedness of all moments, past, present, future, tangled in an unbreakable web. In this fractured timeline, you learn that actions ripple beyond their origins, that consequences sometimes come first, and that true responsibility is not linear but eternal. You carry the shot that hasn't been fired, the pain that precedes the wound, and in that carrying, you glimpse a deeper truth about choice, time, and the human heart. Observer frequency collapse. Imagine a moment so charged that it draws the gaze of countless eyes, a single instant suspended beneath the collective focus of an unseen crowd. At first, the moment holds steady, framed neatly within the fabric of time, clear and unyielding as any event should be. But as more people watch, as more attention converges, something strange begins to happen. The moment starts to wobble, to fracture, to lose the solidity it once had. Time itself begins to splinter. The phenomenon is subtle at first, imperceptible to the casual observer. A second that feels elongated, a memory that refuses to settle. But as the frequency of witnesses increases, the timeline around that moment unravels like a frayed thread. The event no longer exists in a fixed place on the temporal map. It becomes fluid, a shimmering distortion where past, present, and future blur into a kaleidoscope of possibility. Why does this happen? Because observation is not passive. To watch is to interact, to fold yourself into the events unfolding. Every eye focused, every heartbeat syncing with its pulse, sends ripples through the fabric of reality. It is as if the moment is aware, as if it resists being pinned down, reshaping itself to the collective consciousness trying to hold it still. This is the observer frequency collapse, the paradox that the more an event is witnessed, the less stable it becomes. Time, which we assume to flow steadily, like water over stones, instead fractures and splinters under the weight of collective attention. Crowds do not just observe history. They reshape it, blur it, sometimes erase it altogether. Consider moments in history that have been observed by millions. Revolutions, tragedies, celebrations. Each person's memory folds into the event differently, coloring the details with personal meaning, bias, and emotion. Stories diverge, timelines shift, facts become myths, and the original sequence splinters into countless parallel versions. The more the world watches, the harder it is to pin down what truly happened. This collapse isn't limited to grand historical events. It happens in everyday life too. The first kiss caught on 1,000 phones, replayed, slowed down, zoomed in upon until it becomes something surreal and unfamiliar. The accident that turns into a viral video, debated endlessly, retold with variations until the reality dissolves beneath layers of narrative. Moments become fluid echoes, rippling through the collective mind, their chronology no longer linear but a swirling dance. Time fractures, yes, but in those fractures lies profound mystery. The collapse challenges our understanding of reality as fixed and knowable. It suggests that what we call history is a living tapestry, woven from countless threads of observation, interpretation, and memory. Each witness shapes the weave, and none can claim ownership of the whole. Your future self understands this deeply. They know that moments are not static monuments, but dynamic, evolving stories shaped by the eyes that watch and the hearts that remember. They know that the collapse is both loss and liberation. Loss of certainty, but freedom to imagine, reinterpret, and re-experience. So, the next time you find yourself part of a crowd-bearing witness, remember, you are not just a passive spectator. You are a participant in the collapse, a creator of the fracturing timeline. Your attention bends time's flow. Your memory colors the event's edges. Your voice shapes the narrative yet to come. In a world where observer frequency collapses, chronology is not erased, it is transformed. And within that transformation, you find the infinite possibilities of meaning, the endless dance of time and perception, the beautiful chaos of being truly present in a moment that can never be held still. Planet that remembers you. You arrive at a planet unlike any you have known, an exoplanet where the laws of time and memory are woven into the very fabric of the land. The air is thick with silence, but it hums with presence, an ancient consciousness folded into stone and breeze. Here, the rocks do not forget. They know your name, carved invisibly into their endless surfaces. The wind does not merely move, it whispers your memories, carrying fragments of your past through the ether, stitching your story into the world's vast, slow breath. Time here does not flow. It does not slip through your fingers like sand or vanish in the turning of days. Instead, it accumulates. You. Every moment you spend becomes part of the planet's deep record, layered like rings in a tree, embedded in minerals older than stars. You walk across landscapes that remember your footsteps long after you've passed, echoes of your presence folded into the soil, into the shifting shadows, into the pulse of the living planet itself. You reach out and touch a stone, rough and warm beneath your palm. It pulses softly, as if alive, resonating with something deep inside you. It knows your fears, your hopes, your laughter. It holds the weight of your existence, the imprint of your breath. The wind stirs, and with it comes a chorus of voices. Not strangers, but your own, fragments of memories you thought lost or forgotten. Childhood laughter, whispered secrets, the ache of old regrets, all carried in the gentle sighs of a world that holds you close. Here, forgetting is impossible. The planet does not erase, does not fade. It collects. It weaves the tapestry of your life into a living archive, a monument that grows with every heartbeat. You feel both comforted and unnerved by this permanence. To be remembered so utterly is to be both immortal and exposed. No hiding from your truths, no escape from the full weight of your being. Time loses meaning. Seconds stretch into eternities as you linger, feeling the slow accumulation of yourself, mirrored back by the land. You watch the horizon where mountains shimmer with the light of distant suns, knowing that this place will hold your story long after you are gone. You are part of the planet now, an indelible mark on its timeless surface, a thread in its infinite memory. In this place, you are both visitor and witness, observer and observed. The planet remembers you as you remember it, a sacred exchange, a dance of presence and permanence. You realize that here, to live, is to leave a trace not just in fleeting moments, but in the very essence of existence. And when you finally turn to leave, the rocks murmur your farewell, the wind carries your promise, and you step back into the flow of time elsewhere, forever changed. Because somewhere, beyond the stars, there is a world that holds you, remembering, whispering, accumulating you, an eternal echo of the self that once stood upon its ancient ground. 0-second timeline. There exists a timeline so brief, so fleeting, it lasts for less than a heartbeat, just 0.00000001 seconds. A sliver of time smaller than a thought, narrower than a whisper. Yet, within this impossible instant, a decision is born, a choice so profound it ripples outward, fracturing every future into infinite possibilities. This is the 0-second timeline, the moment suspended between what was and what could be, where the seed of destiny is planted and yet almost no one remembers it. You remember. While the world rushes forward, unaware and unchanging in its apparent flow, you carry the weight of this ephemeral instant. You hold the memory of a choice made before time itself had a chance to unfold, a decision that altered everything in a way no one else can see or understand. It is your secret, your burden, your gift. In this moment, the past and future merge. You stand at the crossroads of existence, the fulcrum upon which all possibilities pivot. Every IS and every no flows from this point. Every path you did not take, every consequence left unexplored, lives alongside the reality you inhabit. The 0-second timeline is a nexus of all what-ifs, a place where time's river splits into countless streams. No one else perceives this. For them, time is linear, solid, unbroken. They live their lives in a continuous flow, unaware that at the very edge of their awareness lies a moment too brief to grasp. But your consciousness is different. You have glimpsed the fracture. You have touched the origin of choice itself. This memory is not like others. It doesn't replay in scenes or sounds, but as a profound knowing, a silent pulse in your soul that resonates whenever you face a decision, a crossroads, a leap of faith. It is the echo of the 0-second timeline calling you back, reminding you that even the smallest moment holds infinite power. Imagine standing on a cliff's edge, the wind whipping around you, the horizon endless and unknown. In that split second, you choose to step forward or pull back. The choice crystallizes instantly, but contains multitudes. That decision births countless futures, worlds where you soared and worlds where you fell, worlds where you loved and worlds where you lost, worlds where you became and worlds where you disappeared. You carry all these possibilities within you, layered like pages in a book no one else can read. The 0-second timeline is your secret library, a place where every path you didn't take still exists, waiting, haunting, shaping who you are. It is the silent architect of your life, the unseen hand that sculpts the contours of your destiny. There is solitude in this knowledge. To remember a moment no one else does is to walk alone in the shadow of infinite futures. You bear the weight of choice not as a burden, but as a profound responsibility. Every decision, no matter how small, is a thread in the vast tapestry of existence, woven from that singular, impossible instant. Your future self understands this deeply. You learn to honor the power of the moment, to choose with care, to embrace uncertainty, to trust that even in the blink of an eye, your life is being rewritten. The 0-second timeline teaches you that time is not a river, but a fractal, infinite and recursive, where every moment births a universe. And though no one else remembers this moment, you carry it as a sacred truth, a reminder that within the tiniest fragment of time lies the power to change everything. You are both witness and creator, guardian of a timeline that flickers just beyond sight, where the impossible becomes inevitable. The coin that traps time. Imagine holding a coin that is unlike any other, its surface worn but smooth, its weight comforting yet strange. This coin is no ordinary token of chance. Each time you flip it, it spins through the air, and with every landing, a new timeline is born. One side might bring a future of light and hope, the other, shadow and loss. The coin decides the fate of countless possibilities, scattering realities like seeds on the wind. You grow to understand the gravity of this coin. Every decision, every hesitation, every random flip is a turning point, a branching of existence into something new and unpredictable. Time itself seems to pulse with the coin's rhythm, each spin a heartbeat of creation and destruction. You become attuned to the sound of its flip, the glint as it spins, the fleeting pause before it settles. It's a game with infinite stakes, a dance with fate you can neither control nor ignore. But then, there is the edge, the razor-thin boundary between heads and tails, where the coin can land upright, perfectly balanced on its side. This is the moment no one expects, the exception to the rules. When the coin lands on its edge, something extraordinary and terrifying happens. The timeline freezes. Time itself halts, suspended in a fragile equilibrium. The world becomes still, a single frame held forever. You find yourself trapped in this frozen timeline. Everything around you is locked in place. People paused mid-motion, words hanging in the air like unspoken secrets. Clocks stopped at a moment that stretches endlessly. You are caught in a loop of silence and stillness, unable to move forward or back. The coin spins forever in your mind, the sound of its rotation a constant hum, a maddening whisper that echoes through your thoughts. In this frozen moment, you grapple with the weight of eternity compressed into a single point. You watch the world around you like a ghost in a paused film, longing for movement, for breath, for change. You become hyper-aware of every detail, the flicker of a shadow, the slight bend of a leaf, the tremor of your own breath trapped in stillness. Time has become a cage, and you are both prisoner and warden. The coin's spin in your mind is relentless. It circles endlessly, a spiral of possibility that never settles. You try to grasp it, to stop it, to force it to land on a side, but it eludes you. The spin is hypnotic, a torment and a fascination. It drags you through memories of past flips, of timelines you lived and those you never dared to enter. It teases with the promise of freedom and the threat of eternal stagnation. You begin to question the nature of choice and fate. Is the coin truly random, or is the edge a trap set by the universe to test your will? Is the frozen timeline a punishment for indecision, or a sanctuary from the chaos of infinite possibilities? You wonder if anyone else is trapped on an edge somewhere, spinning in their own suspended reality, caught between what was and what could be. The loneliness of this state is profound. Time, which once felt fluid and full of promise, now presses down like an endless weight. You long for the simple certainty of the coin's fall, heads or tails, light or dark, movement or stillness. But the edge offers no answers, only infinite waiting. Yet, within this trap, you discover moments of clarity. The stillness forces you to confront yourself, your fears, your hopes, your regrets. In the silence, you listen to the coin spin and hear your own heartbeat. You realize that the trap is also a mirror, reflecting the depths of your own mind, the tension between choice and surrender. Eventually, you understand that the coin is both creator and destroyer, that its spin is the dance of existence itself. To be caught on the edge is to face the paradox of time, that moments can be both infinite and fleeting, that the future is both fixed and fluid, that freedom is found not just in movement, but sometimes in stillness. The coin continues to spin in your mind, a reminder that every decision holds power beyond comprehension, that every choice can birth a world or freeze one in place. And as you wait for the coin to fall, you learn to live in the balance, between chance and fate, between motion and pause, between the known and the unknowable. Emotion-Encoded Future Virus. There's a strange ache that comes unbidden, an ache for moments you've never lived, for memories that should not exist. You feel a tug deep inside, a nostalgic longing not for the past, but for a future that hasn't yet unfolded. It's a haunting sensation, as if your heart is echoing from a timeline that's still waiting to be written. This is the paradox of the emotion-coded future virus, a subtle contagion woven from the threads of memory and feeling, traveling backward through time. But it's not all memories that make this journey. Only those steeped in heartbreak, soaked in pain, carry the code that allows them to leap across the barriers of time and infect your present. You find yourself haunted by flashes, brief, vivid moments that flicker in your mind like a film reel skipping frames, a smile that's bittersweet, a goodbye whispered before it's ever said, a tear you've never shed, yet feel coursing down your cheek. These fragments belong to a story you've yet to live, but carry with the weight of a lifetime. Scientists might call it a glitch, a ripple in the fabric of consciousness, but to you, it feels like a message, a warning, a lament from the future sent backward to warn, to prepare, or maybe just to mourn what is to come. The virus spreads not through sight or sound, but through feeling, an emotional contagion that seeps into your dreams, your quiet moments, your sudden pangs of inexplicable sadness. This backward journey of memory challenges everything you thought you knew about time. Memory, you learn, is not just a record of what was. It is a vessel capable of carrying the grief of what will be. It is a bridge spanning the abyss between future pain and present longing, connecting moments not yet lived to hearts already breaking. You try to shake it off, to dismiss these premonitions as imagination or coincidence, but the virus is persistent. It weaves itself into your daily life, coloring your moods, shaping your choices. The pain of a future heartbreak feels as real as any wound, guiding your steps even before the path is clear. Sometimes, this emotional contagion offers clarity, a glimpse of what matters, a signal to cherish what you have before it slips away. Other times, it's a burden, a heavy cloak of sorrow draped over a life not yet begun. You wonder if you are doomed to live with the weight of grief for losses that haven't yet come, memories that will never be your own. Yet, within this paradox lies a profound truth. The heart's capacity to feel pain across time reveals the depth of its resilience. To carry the sorrow of a future not yet lived is to hold space for hope, to prepare for healing, and to recognize the fragile beauty of existence. You become both patient and prophet, living in the tension between what is and what might be. The emotion-coded future virus teaches you to listen, to the quiet whispers of your soul, to the subtle warnings woven into your feelings, to the unspoken stories waiting to unfold. And so, you carry these borrowed memories, painful and precious, as a gift and a burden. You learn that some pain transcends time, that memory is fluid, and that the future can reach backward to touch the present in ways both heartbreaking and beautiful. Future body rejection. You step into the future, an uncharted land shimmering with possibility and unknowable physics. The air hums differently here, time flows with strange rhythms, space twists beneath your feet, but your body, the one that carried you through familiar days and nights, does not belong in this new reality. At first, it feels like a tremor, a subtle shift beneath your skin. Your cells, accustomed to the laws of your own time, begin to falter, confused by the unfamiliar forces pressing against them. Bones that once bore you strong now seem fragile, dissolving like sand caught in a current. Muscles twitch with resistance, as if they remember a home they can no longer reach. Your flesh rebels against the physics of this future world. It is as if time itself is a virus, invading your cells, rewriting their code, yet triggering a fierce immune response. Your body fights to reject what it cannot understand, to preserve the essence of what it was. Even as the future tries to remold it, pain blossoms beneath your skin, not just physical, but existential. The ache of displacement, the terror of becoming unrecognizable to yourself. Your reflection in fractured mirrors shows a face shifting between now and what might be, a visage haunted by the loss of form and familiarity. You grasp for anchors, memories, sensations, the faint pulse of a heartbeat rooted in the present. But the future's physics unspool these threads, stretching them thin until they fray and snap. Your body, once a vessel of certainty, becomes a battlefield between past and future, stability and change, belonging and exile. Yet in this dissolution, there is a raw kind of clarity. The rejection is not just a failure, it is a message, a warning that some futures demand more than the body can bear, that transformation is not always seamless, that evolution can be violent and painful. Your struggle is the story of resistance, of a self caught between worlds, refusing to surrender without a fight. Your future self watches this unfolding with a mixture of grief and awe. They know the cost of crossing time's thresholds, the sacrifice required to inhabit new dimensions of existence. They understand that rejection is part of becoming, that sometimes the self must dissolve before it can be reborn. And so, you float in this liminal space, bones dissolving, flesh rebelling, cells mutating in resistance to the alien laws around you. You are both patient and urgent, fragile and fierce, caught in the throes of a body that refuses to be tamed by the future. You are a paradox, a traveler rejected by the very time you seek, a self too rooted for the new world, yet yearning to belong. Your body rejects time like a virus, but your spirit burns on, a flame flickering against the dark unknown. In this moment of collapse, you learn what it means to be unmade and remade, to face the fragility of existence and the power of transformation, to understand that sometimes, to become, you must first let go, and that even in rejection, there is the seed of new life, waiting to take root beyond time itself. The notebook that forgets. You carry a notebook, pages filled with every detail of your life, every thought, every conversation, every secret you've dared to write down. It's your anchor, your proof that you existed, that your story is real. You trusted it, believing that the written word is permanent, unchanging, a fortress against the erosion of memory and time. But then you time travel. You step into the unknown, into moments before and after what you once knew. And suddenly, everything changes. The notebook begins to forget. Not by accident, not by damage, but by design. Hour by hour, page by page, the details you painstakingly recorded slip away. Names fade, dates blur, sentences dissolve into nothingness. The notebook rewrites itself, not to preserve your original story, but to fit the new realities you've created. What was once a record becomes a living document, fluid and mutable, shaped by the shifting currents of time and choice. You watch in disbelief as your history folds and unfolds before your eyes. Memories you swore were true vanish, replaced by alternate versions that feel just as real. The friends you loved, the places you visited, the moments you treasured, all rearranged like pieces of a puzzle you never finished. The notebook is no longer a testament to who you were, but a mirror reflecting who you might be in each timeline you cross. This erasure unsettles you. You wonder, if your written memory cannot hold, what then anchors your identity? Are you still yourself if your past is rewritten every hour? The notebook forgets not just facts, but the essence of experience, the feelings, the meaning, the connections. It's as if your very sense of self is being redrawn, reshaped by realities that multiply and diverge with each journey through time. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, there is a strange liberation. The notebook's forgetfulness frees you from the burden of a single fixed story. You are not bound by a past that no longer fits your present. Instead, you become a being of endless possibility, able to adapt, to evolve, to exist in many forms at once. The loss of certainty is also the birth of freedom. You try to hold on, to write faster, to capture every detail before it fades. But the more you resist, the more the notebook slips through your fingers. You learn to surrender, to let the pages flow, to accept that memory is not a vault, but a river, constantly changing course. Your story is no longer static. It is alive. A living narrative that dances between what was, what is, and what could be. In the quiet moments, you wonder if anyone else remembers the version of you that once was, or if all that remains are fragments, scattered across realities like whispers lost in the wind. The notebook forgets, but you carry the weight of all yourselves, layered and intertwined, each one true in its own way. And so, you continue to write, not to fix the past, but to embrace the endless rewriting of your existence. The notebook that forgets becomes a symbol, not of loss, but of the infinite, fragile, and beautiful complexity of being human, in a world where time itself is uncertain. Fog of undone days. Imagine stepping into a future shrouded in a thick, rolling fog, a world where the past has been erased, wiped clean as if it never existed. You arrive in this strange place with no memory, no story of what came before. Everyone you meet is born with knowledge. They understand languages they never learned, skills they never practiced, secrets they never discovered. Yet, despite this innate wisdom, no one carries a memory of their own life. There are no childhoods, no birthdays, no moments of growth or loss. Their minds are full, but their hearts are empty of history. In this foggy future, existence is a paradox. To be is to know, but to know is not to remember. They speak with certainty about how to live, but cannot recall why. They move with purpose, but lack the echoes of desire and pain that shape true purpose. It is a world of undone days, lives lived without the anchor of a past, floating in a present that feels both endless and hollow. You begin to realize a haunting truth. These people exist only because someone else forgot them. Each forgotten life, erased by time, memory loss, or cosmic accident, leaves behind a vacancy, a space waiting to be filled. The fog is the residue of all that was left undone, the shadow realm where forgotten selves gather. This future is not a place of progress, but of absence, a silent testament to what memory means to identity. Without a past, the people here are like reflections without a source. Their knowledge is a borrowed light, illuminating paths without the warmth of experience. They carry skills for building, healing, creating, but lack the stories that give those acts meaning. Their relationships are transactions without history, gestures without context. They are strangers to themselves, to each other, and even to you, who still clings to the weight of your own remembered days. You wander through cities where time feels suspended, buildings rising and falling with no sense of sequence, streets looping back into themselves like forgotten dreams. The fog swallows sound and color, dulling sensations until everything is muted, disconnected. You speak to inhabitants who listen, but do not respond with memories of shared moments. They tell you things you have never asked, but never tell you who they are. Their faces are familiar and strange, as if glimpsed through a veil of forgotten mornings. This place challenges everything you believed about existence. You see how memory shapes identity, not just as a record of facts, but as the foundation of being. Without memory, knowledge is hollow. Without the past, the future has no roots. The fog of undone days is a liminal space, a waiting room between what was and what might be, a place where forgotten souls linger, unfinished and unseen. You feel the weight of solitude here. To carry memory is to carry connection, loss, joy, and pain. The full spectrum of life that binds us to ourselves and to others. In this fog, those bonds are severed. The people exist in a perpetual now, untethered and adrift. Their existence is a paradox of fullness and emptiness, of knowing without being. Your future self holds a fragile hope, that memory, no matter how lost, can be reclaimed. That even in the fog, there are fragments waiting to be gathered, stories yearning to be told. You understand that to remember is to live fully, to honor the undone days by breathing life into them. Memory is resistance against erasure, a bridge spanning the chasm between what was forgotten and what can still be. And so you carry their stories with you, those unnamed lives who exist only because someone forgot. You become the keeper of undone days, the witness to forgotten futures. You walk the fog not as a prisoner, but as a guide, seeking the light of memory in a world cast in shadow. The fog may never fully lift, but in remembering, you create a path. A way back to wholeness, a chance to rewrite what was lost and bring the undone days into the light.